like to call to order the June 2nd meeting of the Avalon City Council. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Cassidy?
Here.
Councilmember Sampson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Olson?
Here.
And Mayor Marshall?
Here.
And for the record, Councilmember Hernandez will be here this evening. He's just going to be late.
Okay. If we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Tom Waite. And you may be seated, but I just would like to say I'm very excited, and we want to thank God and all the other higher powers for the safe arrival and return of all the contestants for whatever, all of the staff on all departments, local and the subs that were here, that we had a very safe event, and everybody's should be home back in their respective states. So thank you for keeping everybody safe. Announcements.
Mayor, I guess probably just whether you want to change the order of the agenda this evening. I know that Councilmember Hernandez had a request about being able to still be able to make the council member report section with his late arrival. So if it's your choice, if you wish to take that out of order so that you could accommodate that, he did make that request.
Okay, and we also were going to be moving item 8 up in general business, so that CRNR, so Dean might be able to catch you both.
That's correct. If we can do that, they've asked for that as well.
Okay. Great.
Only announcements that I have.
Written committee?
I have an announcement just to remind everybody that tomorrow at 9 a.m., 9 to 11, we're having a study session, public hearing on the fee schedule.
9 a.m.
And written communications?
I'm aware of a couple this evening, one from Mr. Bill Hill regarding the proposed Vaughn's project. I think that the council also got a copy. If not, I will certainly provide it to you. Then one also, which was on your chair, which was a letter from Mr. Curtin's attorneys regarding alleged conflict of interest for council members Cassidy and Hernandez and Olson, which is on your chair.
Thank you. There are no presentations today. City manager report.
Yes, so just like what you said, Mayor, I just wanted to thank the community, the merchants inside and outside the district, Anheuser-Busch, Mosaic, PRG, Hargrove, Chamber, city employees, Supervisor Kanabi, the list goes on and on and on. It was a huge village of people that really made everything happen this weekend. From what I've been able to gather with speaking with everybody that was involved, unqualified success, very, very minor incidents, if you can even call them that. I just was tremendously proud of our entire town and our team, and just feeling very happy about everything. So thank you.
And that was your only report?
I think that's enough.
Okay. City attorney report.
Yeah, just very briefly, the FPPC is continually tweaking its ethics rules, and last week a new one came into effect that eliminates the exception for small jurisdictions. There was a certain FPPC rule that only applied to small jurisdictions. They have eliminated that, so the rules for big cities also apply to small cities like Avalon.
Okay, oral communications. This is an opportunity for people in the community to discuss or to talk about items that are not on the agenda, and you will be limited to 3 minutes.
David Hart. I work for the city's recreational department. I just want to be able to talk real quick. We have T-ball signups that are going on right now. That's still going on. It starts next week. So if people have not had a chance to get their kids signed up, we're still having the enrollment for that. The incredibly successful adult boxing, kickboxing classes are still going on, and you can still join them at Tremont Hall from 6 to 8 on Tuesdays, Mondays and Tuesdays. You can get more information with us at City Hall. And then also, we got it up and running right now, is you can find all our 4th of July information and donation page on our cityofavalon.com homepage. On the right side of the page, you'll see under the Catalina information. There you can make there's a link that you can press to make a donation towards the festivities that will be happening. And also from that site, you'll be able to be updated on the events, the times of the events, and everything that will be going on with our own 4th of July week. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Other oral communication? Seeing there are none. Consent calendar?
Yes, Mayor. 5 items on the consent calendar this evening. I'll go through them real quick. You've got actions from the May 5th, May 19th, and May 22nd council meetings. An item related to a promotional 4th of July T-shirt purchase. The appointment of an alternate planning commissioner to the Planning Commission. It is recommended Mr. Bart Glass. The consideration of a resolution authorizing the city to join the Gateway Region Integrated Regional Water Management Authority, and the Human Resources Manager Agreement brought back from the last council meeting.
Mayor, I have a couple additions to that, maybe.
Sure.
In the actions, I just want to note that the May 5th, you could all vote on it. The May 19th actions, Councilmember Olson was not present, and then on May 22nd, Councilmember Olson and Mayor Marshall were not present. So in their eyes, we would take that they were abstaining from those. And then on item 3, the appointment of the Planning Commissioner, it is the alternate, but it's also appointing our current alternate, which is Michael Ponce, to fill the regular Planning Commission appointment.
And on item number, the minutes for the meeting of the 22nd, we can't vote on that because we don't have a quorum.
Okay.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can only vote on the 5th and the
5th and 19th.
9th.
Scott, if at the end of the evening, would we be able to, when Mr. Hernandez?
Correct, yes.
Great, you really like to confuse me. Thank you very much. Okay. What is the pleasure of council on these consent items?
I'd like to pull 3 and 5.
I'd just like to ask a question for number 4. Is that costing us any money, Ben?
Yes. I'd like to pull that one.
Okay, you would, okay.
Okay, so we've got 1 and 2 excluding May 22nd.
Motion. Second.
Moved and seconded. Call for the vote.
Oh, I don't have a,
Roll call.
We'll have it.
all ayes?
Aye.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Oh, it's,
Don't take our money.
Don't scratch my check.
Just kidding.
It's on sign. Want to get the light?
It's our check.
Thanks,
Technology is
Jordan.
a wonderful thing, isn't it?
someday that might be in the museum, right?
Didn't we get it from the museum?
Okay. It's been moved and seconded
Thanks, Jordan.
And voted.
and voted. Here we go. Okay, item number 3.
The only reason I pulled this was because I had a note on here to actually call Mr. Glass and talk to him, and I did not have an opportunity to do that. So if it would seem more appropriate for me to abstain from that vote, I'd be happy to, or if we need to have any discussion.
Why would you want to abstain? Because you haven't spoken to
I
him?
have not spoken to him, so I don't think it's doing due diligence to appoint him to a position that I haven't spoke to him about.
Okay.
So I could either hold it over, pull it and hold it over, or I could abstain from it, whatever the pleasure of the council is.
I spoke with him. I don't have a problem with placing him on the commission. And we've advertised twice, and this is the only person we've had sign up, so,
This was the only application?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah.
Well, then there you go. All right.
Yeah, I feel strongly enough about Bart Glass. I know him personally, and I'm glad that he would like to fill this position. It's kind of important to get it filled, and somebody as respectable like him, I think it's a good thing.
Okay. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, to appoint Michael Ponce and to appoint...
Appoint Michael to fill the unexpired term of Doug Lord and appoint Bart Glass to be the alternate planning commission.
And I second that motion.
First and second, public comment? Call for the vote.
4 ayes, 1 absent. Councilmember Hernandez.
Okay, item number 4.
So I think, just to answer, forgive me, I can't remember which council member had the
We
question.
started.
Oh, Councilmember Sampson. There is a $15,000 membership to be part of the Gateway Region Integrated Regional Water Management Authority. However, in order to be eligible for grants and for funding, Avalon needs to be part of a group like this. It has been one of the disqualifiers that we've had, not being associated with a region. So we really feel strongly that there are a number of grant opportunities out there that we could be a serious contender for. So the thought is paying this money will allow us to get in the game and potentially get some grant funds in the water area. So we think it's a good expenditure the city could make. And we're recommending it be included in your fiscal year 15-16 budget, which will come forward for your review and anticipated approval in the next few weeks.
Okay, and I just,
Okay.
it said that I believe it's on page 2, about the appointment. The legislative body of each member agency shall appoint 1 member of the governing body and 1 alternate board. But it says, would that be a member of the council or a member of staff or a member at large in the community? I didn't know who would actually be attending those.
Yeah, I think it's a staff member that normally attends on behalf of the agency. I would
Okay.
recommend Mr. Monroe to serve in that
Right.
capacity. He's been point on a lot of our water issues, as you well know, and he
Okay.
represents us well.
Okay, yeah, it did, I noticed it said water recycling as well. And they only are going to meet about 1 time a year. That seemed like, that's all it said here is the minimum, that's what they were doing, but it's a little more active than that. Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan Monroe. They meet about once a month, second Thursday of every month. And so it'd be a day trip over to the mainland to meet with them. If we don't join this group, we're literally an island on our own, and we have to navigate all these waters on our own. If we join the group, we benefit from their resources, their expertise and insights in going after grants, as well as if they go after grants for the group, we can benefit from those opportunities as well. So we would be included in that. So it is an invaluable resource that the $15,000 is dwarfed by the return on that investment.
Would Audra probably need to attend these meetings too, since she's our grant writer?
We,
Or maybe occasionally when that is...
Yeah, we've got a whole group that city staff and Southern California Edison are working together, and we both attended the first meeting. Well, not the first meeting, but a meeting where we introduce ourselves to the group to make our application and basically our sales pitch as to why we should join and why this group would be applicable to us. So we were all present, so we're all going to be completely involved in the process along the whole way. So it's going to require a partnership with Edison as well as city staff, so everyone will be involved the whole time, the whole way. Whether we send 1 delegate or not, that will be figured out as we kind of get more and more involved with the group.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
So will this come back to us at a later time to officially appoint a member of the legislative body, or can we do that now?
No, it has to be a resolution if it's not a member of this council, and it has to be agendized.
Okay.
So that'll be coming at the next meeting.
I was to say, can I request that as an agenda item for the next meeting?
In writing.
Oh, I need to
No,
do
he
that
says
in
it's going to
writing.
happen anyway, so, okay.
I think.
Okay.
Public record.
Public comment? Council, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve. Adopt the resolution authorizing the execution of a joint powers agreement to join the Gateway Water Management Authority.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Move in second. Call for the vote.
Thanks for budgeting that too.
4
Pam.
ayes.
Sure.
Okay. Item number 5.
Yes, item number 5 is an item we brought back from the last meeting or 2 meetings ago. I can't recall. It's the Human Resources Manager Service Agreement. The proposal is to expand Tiffany Bose's current on-island time from 1 day a week to 2 days a week, continue with her availability when she's also off the island. We've included in this staff report a number of initiatives that she will be working on. She is here, I believe. Yes, she's right there. Okay. So if you have any questions, specifics, I'd be happy to address them. Please let me know.
Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. I will be the first to step out there and say that I am feeling very uneasy about agreeing to a 1-year contract for $100,000 for this particular consulting agreement. One of the things that is not sitting very well for me is not understanding what the timeline is for the items to be accomplished. What I was hoping for, based on the last meeting and what the mayor had requested, I believe, correct me where I'm wrong, was to have, potentially a Gantt chart. What items are happening right now? When will they be completed? When will we be moving forward? So I think for myself being fairly new, I'm learning about the MOU process, how that works, and feeling a little uneasy that those aren't completed when we've been in discussion about those for 6 or 7 months. And I know that they may have only gone to staff at a certain point, but I just want to see on paper, I want to have a guideline that says this will be accomplished by this time. And rather than, I've spent some time with the city manager discussing my thoughts. I really feel more comfortable trying to fill this position with an employee here at City Hall. We have some differing opinions on that, which I will respectfully appreciate and move forward with. But rather than hold up the human resources that is currently underway, I would like to just enter the possibility of extending this contract for 6 months to December 31st. The contract currently expires June 30th. So extending the contract from July 1st to December 31st for an amount of $50,000, which is basically half, adding in the extra day, adding in the stay overnight when need be. I understand that the city will provide the overnight accommodations, et cetera, but I really need to see a timeline and the accomplishments. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, where my thoughts are.
But you're not really extending the contract, you're taking the new contract and cutting the term and cutting the payment.
Cutting the term and cutting the payment. I feel very uneasy about entering into the contract for 12 months. I'm uneasy about the financial aspect of it as compared to the possibility of an employee. And again, I do respect that we have a differing opinion on this, but I would feel much more confident with 6 months, agreeing that within a 1 week to 10-day or 2-week period that we have a time frame associated with what's written in the staff report. I think we talk about all these things that need to be done, but I'd like to know when they're going to be done. That would make me feel more comfortable.
One thing that is a little bit of a wild card, which makes a little bit of that difficult, is the fact that a lot of these are tied into the MOU negotiations, and we certainly have we're trying to move through those, but the city can't control every aspect of that. We're bargaining in good faith with the employee associations, and I'd like to think that we would be completely finished with those in the next few months, but I don't know for certain because we don't have a whole lot of counters from them yet. We've submitted our management proposals, and we don't have complete counters at this time.
I guess this being my first time in this process, then how do we, if we can, how do we facilitate moving forward? Do we say, let's table this contract until the MOUs are done? Do we say, can the MOUs be done within 30 days? Can you,
MOUs won't be completed in 30 days. I guess
forcing that? I mean, I don't understand what the holdup is. We've been talking about them for 7 months.
Well, and we can't really get into discussing
I understand.
MOU negotiations with you, but, you know, any conversation is always a two-way street, of course. But the other thing I'll point out to you is the contract does allow for a 30-day notice for termination, either party. So you have that currently. I'm just pointing that out as a term that's in there, and that was in the last contract too.
I mean, how do we facilitate helping the MOUs move further?
Again, I can't really,
Okay.
you know, get
Okay,
into.
I just want to make sure I ask the question because there's,
I can assure you
Yeah.
that I believe that everybody's motivated to do that. I think the associations are motivated just like the city is. We're both sides are, all sides are acting in good faith, but you know, it's not a short process. It's also something that you have to remember has not been completed in years. I mean, the last signed MOUs, I believe, are from 2011. So there's a lot of laws have changed since then. We're trying to add a lot of provisions in that have become standard in municipalities throughout the state, and frankly, the associations need time to go through and review and make sure their membership is comfortable with them. So it's, you know, there's a lot going on. It's a major initiative, and there are 3 separate employee associations. So,
right.
you know.
And I know that there's a 30-day clause in the contract, but sometimes it's in the budget, supersedes that. So I like what Cindy's saying. I think it gets us a list of projects and a timeline which is expected to be completed in. I think some of the points she brings up about the negotiating that closed session stuff, but I mean, there are some taxes we can use, or we can direct them to use. So, I mean, it doesn't say that it won't go on, but at least it gives us the finite target there to get to.
And then Joseph?
What elements of the contract are out of our volition, or out of, I mean, can you speak to that or no? Okay. Yeah,
I can tell you that, like with any contract, you know, anytime you're talking about wages and benefits and terms of employment, I mean, you know, there's a lot of items that are obviously sensitive to a bunch of different people for good reason.
So this is a negotiation that goes on every 2 years, correct? And if it takes, no?
It depends on, so currently the city doesn't have any signed active MOUs. Not for the general employees, the AMEA, not for the fire employees, not for the harbor employees. All the MOUs have lapsed. So we're just operating under the personnel policies and the provisions that are in the old MOUs. But we don't have any current contracts. So it's very important that we finish negotiations and every employee association have a current contract that they're entered into with the city. It's in our interest, it's in their interest, everybody wants it.
And it goes as long as the parties agree. So the parties agree to how long the MOU will be in effect. That's one of the
Right,
things
and-
we're negotiating.
And without divulging any terms of the negotiations, I mean, I think it's well known that the city and the associations are talking about a multi-year agreement.
Well, I'd like to encourage both parties to cut to the chase because I'm becoming really impatient with this. We need to come to terms with some contracts for our employees. I don't think it's good that we leave them hanging like this. I don't.
Well, nobody's leaving anybody hanging. It's just it's like I said, there's a lot on the table to go through. It's a lot for everybody to. I can assure you, it's a good faith negotiation by all associations and the city. We're not at impasse. We're not at any type of stalemate. It just takes a long time.
So, and this question, I'll just ask you about it. If you want Tiffany to come up, that's fine. Would you say is it fair to say that a good chunk of the time spent in this capacity has been taken up by the Avalon Complex? I mean, I know there's some reference to that in here, so I'm just trying to figure out where all the hours are going.
Well, a lot of things, and as council may remember, before we appointed a human resources manager, I was probably spending 20 to 30% of my time every day in the capacity of human resources manager. The day-to-day of being a human resources manager consumes a lot of time because you're dealing with issues related to employees. You have to have confidential meetings with them. You have to help settle disputes between different parties. You have to review and respond to questions regarding wages and benefits and employment law. So just the day-to-day alone of just handling that takes a good chunk of time. Add to that trying to catch up and create 3 MOUs and bring them up to speed with the law changes and again what is going on in other municipalities throughout the state. That's been a huge effort to do that. We're trying to create a number of policies that we've never had before related to safety. So there's been a whole bunch of things that I was unable to launch, serving as a part-time HR manager, if you will, that have really required her to dive in and spend a lot of time doing.
It just seems like we're so, in some cases, so far behind, like you're just alluding to, having to, update all of our laws and our MOUs, create all these policies. I mean, let's argue bringing somebody on full time.
I don't think that for our size city that's a good investment. I think that what you're seeing in municipalities throughout the state is you are seeing arrangements like this where it's more cost effective to do it in the manner in which we are proposing to do it. If you were going to have an HR manager here, the total compensation for that position, because it's a senior position, is probably north of $200,000. And we've got the salary surveys that show that. So that's a sizable chunk of money, and frankly we don't have those type of resources. And I don't think that with 59 full-time employees that you necessarily need somebody here every single day of the week. I mean, Tiffany's reachable when she's not here. She's responsive. We are able to handle a lot of things remotely when she is not in the office, but it would be nice, just for the sake of trying to have more available negotiation time, to have her on the island for an additional day, because when we are negotiating with the associations, it's the city management side has 3 representatives in some cases, for depending on the association, and that association itself might have 2 or 3 or 4 people that are at the table. So you've got a lot of different schedules you're trying to coordinate too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a small undertaking.
And I guess that brings up the point of the class comp studies. And you're saying that you have, compensation studies of this. I mean, the research that I got was closer to like 130 to 150,000, not 200,000.
That's not total compensation. I can tell you that's not accurate, and that I know for a fact that is not correct data.
Okay, so average salaries in general are running around anywhere from 85 to the high-end larger cities, 106. That's not total compensation. I appreciate that, but that's what I'm trying to get to, is to feel comfortable about discussing this much money, and how does that compare to actually bringing somebody on?
But a full-time employee, you can't just talk about salary. It's total compensation.
Mm-hmm. I understand that, but
so
even
the true cost is over $200,000. That's the cost. It's not $85,000. It's not $100,000.
But where does that data come from?
From polling like cities, similar to Avalon, like the ones we used in the class and compensation survey.
Madam Mayor, this sounds like a different agenda item.
And therefore I will make
Fair
my comments.
Fair enough.
Okay. Later in the meeting, we have a closed session with city manager evaluation, and I would like to, ask if there's any comments from the community, but at the same time, tie this into the evaluation that we will be asking for later, or that we're going to be dealing with later, and then come back and vote on this. Because I think there's a lot of tie-in with what we're going to be discussing in closed session.
So
Instead of just making it a simple, let's go for 6 months, I would rather, because this information isn't outlined in the way that I wanted it in terms of timeline and whatever, I would like to have that discussion. But that's the pleasure of the council.
And if that is the council's directive, then it would be appropriate if there's any members of the public that would like to speak on this item, because we may close session when we get out of it. Usually there's no one left.
Right.
You're proposing moving this to a closed session so that we can talk about it?
After the closed session. But part of the discussion of the city manager evaluation would be his discussion, his analysis of the needs of the human resources department.
I see.
And then after that, then you take a vote on this contract after that discussion.
And that would be an open meeting?
Yeah, this contract would be voted on in open session after closed session.
Okay.
And forgive me, can we do that without noticing that that will be discussed in closed session, or?
No, it's
I'm
an
going to be
evaluation. It's the city manager's evaluation. Job performance.
And I'm discussing some of the activities in here as they relate to his evaluation.
Okay.
In other words, we're getting into areas about this particular subject that don't really have to do with voting on this. It has to do with our Human Resources Department in general for the city of Avalon, correct?
And the city manager's management of that function.
Okay. Okay.
What's that?
I think Yoli wants to.
Oh. Hi, Yoli.
Yolanda Montano, 20 Canyon Terrace. Regarding item number 5, I happen to have to agree with Councilmember Cassidy on this. We really need to take a look at this salary. And has anybody thought about sending it out to bid? You know, for other human resource companies? You know, keep people honest, put it out there.
Can you help me with this one, Ben? Can you explain a little better RGS and where Ms. Bose, how she fits into that picture?
RGS is a governmental entity. It was created to help cities in the state of California to fill staffing needs where the city might not have the resources for a full-time person, but they might need expertise in an area. So this is actually a JPA. The city uses other consultants from this same Joint Powers Authority. We've got a planning consultant that we use from here. We have a management analyst budget officer that we also use from this firm. So we have a relationship with them. They've served other communities up and down the state well. So that's how they were selected.
I would note, since there was a question, we did in the past twice go out to RFP for human resources firm, and the responses were slim, and council deemed them inadequate.
Yes.
Thank you. And who is doing our day-to-day human resources currently?
Tiffany oversees the human resources function. Excuse me?
Tiffany?
Tiffany.
Oh, okay.
Yes, she oversees
She does,
the function.
and she's been doing that.
Yes.
She's been handling all that.
Well, there's as far as like, we also have a representative in the finance department that does a lot of the paperwork and processing and that type of thing. But as far as making decisions, I mean,
On
she
the
does a
day-to-day,
lot of.
yeah.
Excuse me.
On the day-to-day.
Right, and I weigh in where appropriate, of course, too. It's you know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Questions? Yes.
This is going to be someone that works 2 days a week, right? So that $50,000 a year, that's a crap load of money. Does this person know what they're doing? Did you guys take any bids on this?
Well, I think they just addressed the bid thing, and
It's actually more than it's 2 days a week on the island with additional
Yes.
service, obviously beyond that too.
Why don't we find somebody that can just, you're looking to update your manual, correct? Or is this somebody that's going to be a position that when there's a fire, break glass, this woman runs over and fixes it? Person, whatever it is.
I'm not following that.
Are
I'm
you
sorry.
updating, it looks to me from the paperwork like you're updating your operational manuals for the city, how you interact with other groups, correct?
Well, I think you're speaking to the policies and procedures that are being updated. That's one of the tasks. That's not the only task.
Okay, so why would she be here 2 days a week after the policy manuals were updated?
Well, one thing that we've found with human resources is it is helpful to have a representative in person. Oftentimes, a lot of the discussions that take place are of a sensitive nature, confidential nature, and sometimes it's easier to facilitate those with somebody in person.
Okay, well, this is like roughly $250,000 a year if you put somebody on full-time. And if you run that downstream, that's a couple, $3 million when they get, well, more than that, $5 million when they get a retirement. So does the city need something like that? Do they need an employee that ends up, this work tends to expand to fill the time that's allotted to it?
Just to be clear, this is a contract. There is no retirement being paid as part of it. That's part of the reason why we think it's an attractive option for the city.
Okay. Then I thank you very much for the enlightening information.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Other comments? Okay, so what is the pleasure of the council?
So, just for the information, may I comment on something in reference to maybe what some of Tom's questions were? Tiffany Bowes is available, or RGS is available every day of the week for human resources, anything that would relate to that, right? If we had an issue with some employees, they were able to contact her for her help, correct?
Yes, she's got an email account, she's got a phone number that's been made available to everyone in the city, so absolutely. If they've got a question.
Tested, tried, and true. She's there. She's been there for us, correct?
Weekends also.
Weekends also, okay. Just so you know that, Tom. She's available by phone, email, not just the one day she's here, so I just wanted to add that in there, that's all.
Annie, I'm happy to hold this over. Sorry, Mayor.
Hold it over to the closed session?
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
That's fine.
Alrighty. Thank you. Item okay. That was number 5. Now we will go to general business, and we're going to go to item 8.
Okay, so item number 8 is the third amendment to the franchise and lease agreement with CR&R, otherwise known as Avalon Environmental, and your Chief Administrative Officer, Ms. Ratty, will be providing the staff report on this item. Denise?
This will be the third amendment to the contract that we entered originally with CR&R in March of 2013. The first amendment was in June of 2013, and that was for adding additional services to things that were outside their contract and to change their name to Avalon Environmental. The second amendment was a year later, in June of 2014, and that's when we added the street sweeping services for $3,000 a month. And then we are asking council to approve this amendment this evening, but you have some choices and options to determine. The first one is on the baler. In the original contract, they were supposed to have a new baler here on Island, or refurbished, however you want to say, after 6 months. So technically they are in breach of the contract, and it should have been done by October of 2013. But I will say that it's not just CR&R. We have how government works. It moves along for a little ways and then it gets held up. And Dean Ruffridge and Steve Batty are in the audience this evening for additional questions. But on the baler, they have, even though they haven't refurbished one or supplied a new one, they did tweak it enough that they increased the bale weights up to almost 2,000 pounds. And in addition, they have decreased the bales they've been putting in the landfill simply by taking the mattresses out of the grinding and composting of the bales, because they recycle them now, so which has been a great asset to the island. And they will be giving us $60,000 for our old baler. They currently have the new engine. It's ready to go. Staff has given them a tentative letter telling them to move forward so we could get this going and fully in operation by the end of June, so by the end of this month. They have been in contact with the LA County Public Health, Leah, is that correct, Dean? To make sure that they know of all the steps, because there would be a couple days where they would not be able to bale the stuff for the landfill. The second item on there is the purchase of the city's 5 compactors, which we still own. And in your staff report, it reflects that a wrong amount. It says it was for $3,125, and I believe I sent you all an email with the the real amount, which was $1,250, which breaks down to $250 each compactor. And those are in the area behind Vaughn's Express, so all those businesses along Crescent Avenue and Middle Crescent, and then on the other side by South Beach, use those compactors. So currently, a question was asked by Mayor Pro Tem Olson if those compactors are currently being charged to the businesses. They are not, but once CR&R purchase them from us, they will, but that is divided between lots of businesses. And they will be responsible for cleaning them and maintaining them. And so the third item would be, this is one of our big issues. All of these little bullet points have been a long time coming before council. Is whether, in the contract it says that they provide free C&D services to the city. But when we had our one big project on Lower Terrace, we were using that as our free service. So we were in disagreement over that, correct, Dean? And so there's some tweaking in the wording in our agreement. So the main thing in the agreement would be that similar infrastructure improvements would not be included in the free C&D. So then the next few bullets on the second page of your staff report, those are the ones where you're going to have to determine which way you would like to handle the agreement as far as the C&D. We had the rain gutters, which were not ever presented to CR&R when they purchased or they took over the landfill, and that was kind of a thing hanging in the wind with Siegel, and we never took care of it. Kind of kept being taken off the budget, and it never got done. So that is something that has to be addressed. And so one of our first options is that CR&R has requested that the city pay either the $63,388 for the past C&D services that we had them take for free, and in exchange, CR&R is willing to undertake and solely pay for the replacement of the necessary rain gutters at the MRF. These, as I said, these repairs predated their agreement, and technically they're not responsible for all the rain gutters. And if you notice, we have some great cactus growing out of the rain gutters up there at the MRF. They have holes in them. They do absolutely nothing right now, and so it is continually being pointed out by LA County Health when they come over. So it is something we have to take care of.
With their rain gutters, do they have the ability to capture the water that comes off of those? Excellent.
What do you do with it?
Not right now.
Yeah.
Do you recycle it? Or you use? Okay. It's necessary. Yeah. Good. Thank you for doing that.
And the $63,000 isn't like tit for tat. The rain gutters are they $63,000 worth of rain gutters or no?
It would be like.
I think if the city were to do it and pay for it at the last estimate and adding the cost, it'd be about $35,000 to $45,000. We received several.
For rain gutters?
Yes. Yes.
Have we gotten current ones, Steve?
Yeah, they got
Estimates?
estimates.
The other alternative to this is the CR&R has proposed that the city pay $26,764 for the past C&D, and the city increased the CR&R monthly street sweeping from $3,000 to $4,500 a month, and that CR&R will conduct and pay for the necessary rain gutter replacement.
Also, a new street sweeper in that proposal?
Yes, so they are proposing to purchase a new street sweeper, which is smaller, it's a lower, and it would be able to go down our alleys, hopefully, correct, Dean?
Mm-hmm.
And then your last option is that you don't do anything, you don't address the C&D in the amendment.
So
And if
can
you have
we
any clarification, Dean is here to answer some of those questions.
I might have missed what you were saying about the street sweeper. A replacement or an addition?
A replacement. A smaller one that would really work for Avalon.
And they'll CR&R will pay for that?
Yes.
If I could, the one we have currently is, as you've seen, it's a over town street sweeper, if you will, and it's certainly an improvement over the city's sweeper that we were using, in that it's not breaking down every week. But this new smaller one they're proposing actually could get in the alleys. We can't get in the alleys currently. Much more easy to navigate around. And it's going to be a more realistic cost of what it truly requires for that service. I mean, the amount that we're expending currently doesn't really allow for them to recover their costs.
I'm not totally understanding the $63,000 for C&D debris collection service, and that's something that we owe them? No?
They think we'll.
The issue is, the agreement provides that construction and debris, C&D, they take the city C&D for free. They don't charge us for it. And the rationale behind that is, they take the C&D and they sell it to off island. They take the wood and that material, so they make money. The issue with the road work is that the construction debris, the C&D, was the actual road itself, which they can't sell. They have to put it in the landfill. So their argument was, under the agreement, that's not something that we have to take for free. We'll charge the city for it, just like we charge a third party. We argued that no, you have to take it for free. And so the compromise that we reached was, one of the compromises, if the council accepts it, is, okay, we'll give you the money for the C&D, but you'll do the rain gutters.
Okay, and that's just something that was overlooked because it was a technicality that was basically overlooked by.
I didn't think it was overlooked. We had a disagreement as to what is construction, what is road work.
It's an element that they probably should have pointed out, that they were not going to honor taking. I understand that. That happens, and there's things we need here. Plus, I think they're doing a good job. They want to add doing work in the alleys, correct? Possibly sweeping the alleys, because I've had a lot of complaints about the alleys being so dirty. And I let them know that we need to do a little bit of work in the alleys too, as just because they're pretty beat up and they're pretty trashy, and it's hard just to run a street sweeper through there and say, okay, it's good now. I don't believe that's the case. There's a lot of holes, pitching. There's a lot of problems with those alleys that we need to take care of. But it would be nice that when we do that we could run a sweeper down through there, and maybe people who live on those in the flat areas would take more pride in keeping that clean. So what I'm understanding here is we've come to an agreement on basically the CR&R versus the rain gutters. And now we're going to talk, because there's like three elements on here. There's a rain gutters, there's CR&R, and then there's also the increase for the street sweepers, correct? Which we're going from $35,000 or $30,000 to $45,000. So we're almost doubling the cost, but they're going to add another street sweeper, correct?
They're not going to add another one. They're going to replace the one that they're using currently with a smaller street sweeper that we think is better suited to clean the streets on the island, because it can get that access that you were just talking about.
Are those leased? Is it a leased one then?
No,
Oh, no.
They own it. They own about 50 street sweepers that they deploy throughout their service area.
Okay.
Well, my question is, will it still be able to efficiently do the regular streets?
We think it's going to do a better job. We
We
think
do.
it's better suited for
Is
our
there-
smaller streets. It's going to be able to maneuver better. It's going to be able to.
Yeah, I didn't see a photograph in here of it.
There isn't
There's
one.
Joe.
There is one, okay.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Mr. Ruffridge could send us a photo.
Is this going to be LPG powered? Is it going to be the LPG powering?
So I think, along with what Councilmember Sampson said, the summary of alternatives, that would be alternate number 2, which we would only pay them $26,000 for the C&D, but we would increase, in order to get the street sweeping, we'd increase it $1,500 a month. They do more street sweeping than they're doing right now, because they're going to cover the alleys, and they're going to do the rain gutter replacement. themselves on their dime.
Yeah, I was kind of doing the math, and it looked under the second alternative. We're going to pay $18,000 more in street sweeping. We're going to pay $26,000 for the C&D collection, but they're going to put in $35,000 to $40,000 in rain gutter, get a better street sweeper going. I don't know, alternative two, but only, I want your opinion, but, well, everybody's, but alternative two seems pretty good to me. But then my other question is, as we go forward with C&D, we're now going to be paying for it if we tear up streets.
For only the street portion of it, but
Yeah.
not for other C&D, like if we would tear down a building.
Right.
You know, no, they take that for free.
Okay,
It's
but
just-
roads.
This is road work.
Okay.
What are you talking about? Like ground up concrete and ground up asphalt?
Asphalt, correct.
Asphalt, okay.
Because they can't put that in the landfill.
Right.
Well, I mean, they put it in the landfill and then the landfill grows. Normally C&D, you ship it off island and and there's recyclers and companies that pay for C&D, and part of the agreement that we have with them is that I think we get 20% of whatever C&D they take off island and they get paid for. We negotiated with them, we get 20% of that. So it's an offset for the cost of services.
Okay,
We get a monthly check, Joe, and last year, I think we almost got $100,000. Some months we get $6,000, some months we get $10,000.
okay. I also think we ought to look into recycling our old roads then in that case, because there are methods where you can grind up the old asphalt, you add some bits to it, and it basically readheres together again, and you can reapply it back on as long as you have a base on there. That way we don't have to be paying to ship it off. We just bring a company over that recycles it and then add a little new stuff to it. So, and we can maybe talk to Dennis about that and see if that's something that's potentially applicable here.
We actually did that once. We brought over the stuff where they ground it and relayed it. So it worked.
It does work? Okay. Yeah.
Well, option three doesn't seem like an alternative because like other things, we want to get it resolved. So I think it's one or two unless you come up with some other magic, whatever.
I like two. Makes sense. Everybody's covered, everybody comes out whole. We get a new street sweeper. Are you entertaining a motion? Or do you want the public?
Whoa. Let's ask for public comment. Okay. There is none.
Wait, I have one quick question. I just want to make sure I heard it correctly. The responsibility to clean the compactors in the alleyways and behind businesses now currently lies with CR&R, but will be transferred to the business owners? Or how is
Not
that
the
now?
cleaning.
The cleaning of them and
No.
maintenance of them, if you will?
Good evening. Dean Ruffridge with CR&R. Steve Beatty is here from Avalon Environmental. Technically, the maintenance and the cleaning of the current compactors is your responsibility. There was a breakdown of one of the compactors. You might remember about 4 or 5 or 6 months ago, CR&R did take care of that repair. It was several $100s. Those compactors are about 8 or 9 years old now, and they're getting where they need new valves, new hydraulics, and so forth. I think we got a good price from our consultant to buy those out from you for $250. Steve will go through those. He'll clean them up. He'll degrease them. Clean them however, whatever's necessary, and keep them clean. And you'll also repaint those areas where they're worn down real bad, because that is an area where visitors and people frequently go into that alley. They should look good. So it's going to be our responsibility from now on.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Just as a point of information, there was some graffiti on one of those balers that the CNR did come down and fix the next day. And it wasn't their baler, but they did take care of the graffiti.
That's great. I'm, when you walk down the alleys or walk behind certain businesses, they're pretty stinky, and I just was curious who the responsibility fell upon to maintain
transferring
and
it.
clean those.
Right. Okay. No other comment? Council, what's your pleasure?
I'd like to move to amend the agreement, the second bullet point, which is the alternate city pay $26,754 for past C&D. The city increases CNR's monthly street sweeping from $3,000 to $4,500. CNR will conduct and pay for the necessary rain gutter replacements, and the council, we will sell the compactors to Sharon R., and they will be responsible for the maintenance and the cleanliness.
Okay, is there a second?
I second that.
Further discussion? Call for the vote.
I do want to say, thank you very much. You guys do a great job. I'm very grateful, and I know the city's very grateful at the job that the trash company does, and keep those street sweepers out there. Thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Dean. Okay.
You made it, Dean.
Yep. With time to spare.
Mayor Marshall, you going to vote?
Oh, I think so. Call for the vote.
You're the one that did.
Oh.
4 ayes, 1 absent, Councilmember Hernandez.
Okay, moving right along.
Bye, nice to meet you. Thank you for coming.
Only I'll remember that the suggestion you have for me next time I call.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye, Steve. Okay, general business.
Yes, Mayor, I believe we're going back to item number 6 at this point. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is a public hearing regarding saltwater and sewer fees for fiscal year 2015 and 2016. And again, the Chief Administrative Officer has prepared this item and will present a report to you on it. Denise?
Okay. I'd like to open the public hearing. Okay. Public comment. This is about fees, saltwater and sewer.
Did you guys get the letter, the email? There was just one, I think, by Sandra Ferns. I did not receive notice by mail. However, please consider this is my protest to such absorbent fee increases proposed for our sewer and saltwater fees. That's all. I just wanted to
When
make
did we
sure
get that?
I got that 3:07 p.m. I think that was today.
Can you tell on there, did that go to everybody? I'm not seeing
It
that.
says, yeah, let me see.
Does it have
Yeah,
all
it
of
says
us?
Marshall, Olson, Sampson, Hernandez, and Cassidy.
Okay, thank you.
And
Could you please forward that to me, Joe, so that I could just have it for my records?
Of course.
yeah, and Denise, can I trouble you to forward that back to me? Because I don't have it here as being received.
So we did mail out a public notice to everybody, giving them the breakdown of the fees, explaining the process. And if there is a majority of written protests, then council is to consider not raising those rates. And it was 35% increase for, I'm sorry, I've got to read my notes here. City Council determined at the March 17th, 2015 City Council meeting to propose raising the saltwater fees by 35% and the sewer fees by 15%. Oral comments at the public hearing will not qualify as a formal protest unless they are accompanied by a written protest, and it is supposed to be the majority of property owners. We take our notification list from LA County records, and we probably got back about 30 that didn't ever make it to property owners. They either no longer owned the property and LA County hadn't updated their records yet. Some of them we were able to resend out because we knew who had purchased that property because it was Avalon. And I had received one written protest, and it was regarding the saltwater fees only because of where they were located, that they do not use the saltwater. And so this would be letter number 2. And protest.
Yeah,
All right, public comment?
don't know how to forward it yet.
Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public meeting. Council?
Nobody likes to raise fees, but we've been taking money out of the general fund to support the saltwater fund and the sewer fund for the past bunch of years, and we've got to make sure that the funds can become self-sufficient. Otherwise, we eventually run out of money, and we're doing a great job of saving fresh water right now. It's hard to save this other stuff. It's our federal government. We have a sewer plant out there that costs us over $1 million to operate, and we have salt water that we provide to everybody for both fire and sanitation. And we've got a really old one. I think you've been in town. Last Labor Day we had a saltwater failure in downtown, and we just kind of have to do it. We skipped over it last year, and we also skipped over it the year before, which is unfortunate because when you do skip over it, as your deficits continue to grow, you need a larger fix to make it whole.
So, so it's actually, we're raising it 35%, correct? So if you have a $100 bill, it's going to go up to $135. But in fact, the fact lies that right now our bills are too low, correct? I mean, our rates are too low.
We're subsidizing these funds, if you will, yes.
Okay, so, and one of our objectives as city council is, our new city council a year ago was to level the budget. And this is something that we're doing to do that. And like I resonate with what Oli just said, it's hard to do, and we don't like doing it, but if you're a homeowner, the rates are just going to be level now. I mean, and I understand with this 35% increase, we are still a little bit below our cost for salt water, so the city will still subsidize, and maybe the next couple of years we can add a couple percent onto the bills instead of this 35% stuff. But it's a high increase, but it's somewhere where we have to go as a community in order to level our budget. And
Mayor, for the record, because we don't have a lot of property owners, by increasing the salt water by 35%, that's only an additional $137,000 to our budget. And by increasing the sewer 15%, it's $215,000. An example for residential, annually it's an additional $49.93. And the residential for the sewer, it is $71.40 a year.
Council, what is your pleasure?
So the motion would be that you would introduce and waive all further readings of the ordinance, and this would come back again at the next council meeting.
And this needs 4 votes. It needs 4/5 votes, but because Councilmember Hernandez is here, this has to be unanimous.
For it to go further.
Right.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Introduce and waive. Okay. Second?
I second. I
Okay.
don't like to, but I do.
I know. Call for the vote.
4 ayes and 1 absent. Councilmember Hernandez.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to congratulate the council for taking the tough road. It's the thing that had to be done. I'm glad you guys did it.
I know.
I was a little bit surprised we had only received one
Yeah,
letter.
I know.
That's why I wanted to see that. I expected there to be a
2.
little bit more on that.
But yeah.
Oh, 2, sorry.
Item number 7.
Yes, Mayor, item number 7 is a request for authorizing an amendment to the Catalina Transportation Services Agreement for a 9-month term beginning in July and expiring in March of 2016. This would be the 10th amendment to the city's agreement with Catalina Transportation. We presented this item originally at the meeting on May 5th. Mayor Pro Tem requested that we hold it over to this meeting. Since that time, we have hired a transportation consultant because, as you know, we are looking to go out for RFP. And it's anticipated that for the entire duration of this extension, that will mirror the amount of time it's going to take to prepare, distribute, and decide upon a winner, if you will, from the RFP process. I know that Connie is here from Catalina Transportation. So if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them for you.
Hi. Hi. Connie Stewart, Catalina Transportation General Manager. Just here if you have any questions.
So on the last meeting that we discussed this, there were...
Excuse me.
It's my fault. Apologize.
Okay.
Is that from up for whatever?
Yeah, but this thing has never had any volume on it. For some reason, it just came forward.
It just got volume.
At the appropriate moment. I apologize for the interruption.
I'd like to see the video again.
I'd be willing to hold over this discussion
yeah.
for a happy video.
Okay. Sorry, I need to pull my thoughts again. When we were gathered here before to talk about this, you had wanted an extension because you had some concerns to talk about. And I just wanted to know what those were and if you were able to address those.
Yes, I definitely was able to address those. One of them was the mechanical state of the trolleys, which after talking with Ben and talking with Roy and Audra, we determined, and then I called Karen and I had extensive conversations with her. And she determined she was going to go ahead and put forth the money to get the trolleys in better working order for the summer. And that is it, so long as we get this 9-month extension. Which is, we've already got it all in the process, and I've sat down and I figured all the numbers to figure out what it would cost and what the, so that we don't lose money in order to do this. And we have it all figured out. And then the other one was because originally when I had found out about it at the last city council meeting, I'd found out about it 24 hours ahead of time. And not that it was anybody's error or anything, I know things happen, but so we wanted to add something in there, and this was, per my attorney, this is something we should add in here, is that we notify you and you notify us anything in regards to the contract that will change at least 2 weeks in advance. That gives me time to prepare, that gives you time to prepare, that gives everybody time to be ready for it, so we don't have to extend something again or ask for an extension. And those were really the only 2 items, and we got it all taken care of. We talked to Roy and Audra and Ben, and I think we all kind of agreed.
And then I have a question for the city, probably for Audra, who I know couldn't be with us tonight. I don't understand why the city pays in advance.
It's just the way that the contract is structured currently. It's one of the things that we're going to be looking at in this RFP process.
Do you, Connie, do you have any idea why that was in the previous contracts?
I know that it's always been a sort of a lump sum of money. And I know through the years, the city has deemed, okay, we're going to put this amount of money towards ACT, this amount of money towards Art and Dar. And I don't believe there was ever a system to determine why it was X amount of dollars here and X amount of dollars there. We run both programs, so what we do as a company is we kind of put it together to ensure that both programs run. I mean, I can itemize things separately for you, but we kind of do it in a bulk. And this is the amount of money that was determined that needed to run it. And I can tell you from the numbers that I run that it really is the amount of money that's needed to run this program. I mean, I work through numbers all the time to tell you how much it is for our average taxi fare, how much it is that we get paid per rider. Currently it's approximately $6.66 per rider that we get paid, and that's when you combine the programs together. And that's not really an unimaginable number, because when you think about repairs and staffing and the amount of time involved, I mean, gosh, my amount of time involved in this program alone is a lot. So that's really, I don't think anybody has ever sat down to take the time at the city to figure out how much goes here and how much goes there. Because I know from the past meetings I've been in, when it was with Charlie, he didn't really know why we put this much to here and why we put that much to there. They just knew that this is how much it took total. And we know that from doing our audits every year too. If you look at all the numbers that Audra has every year, this is how much the costs are. I mean, it genuinely is. The profit margin is very tiny. It's not a huge profit. There's even been years where she's lost money, so.
And
if
where
that
does
gives
that
you an
come from?
indication.
That gap, does that come from our general fund, or?
What, the gap? No, if there's a
That
loss,
comes from you
we
guys?
take it.
So then a side note then for the city would be, what is our process in our transit planning or request for proposal?
So we've hired a consultant who has begun the due diligence of looking at our existing contract, looking at our needs. He's also met with Connie. He's going to be making recommendations and putting together that RFP so we can get that out.
So this 9 months covers you and we'll be done with this process.
Right, that's the thought is that they parallel path.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've talked to Roy since then, and he's going to be coming here, I believe, in like a week or two.
Yep.
And he's going to sit down with me, and I'm going to take him through our entire program. And, you know, I've gotten a lot of things prepared for him just to try to simplify it for him. But, yeah, so I'm going to explain exactly how the program works for him and why we do the certain things that we do. If he has recommendations for us, I'm going to take those because, you know, I'm always willing to have recommendations. And so this is something that Audra and Roy and I are going to be working very closely together on.
Okay.
We have new our new electric buses that are going to be here? I mean, how far out are we from that? Is that a year away?
No, I believe that we were looking at a November delivery date, so that's
Okay.
also a process where we're going to be constructing the charging pad in the next few months so that when they
Okay.
are delivered, we have a place to charge them up.
So charging pad will be ready to charge up, and that's
And they
something.
will, once they're here, Catalina Transportation will commence using those buses instead of the gas-powered trolleys they're using currently.
Yeah, and Roy had talked about us doing like a soft run with them too, just to make sure that everything's
Okay,
running
now,
smoothly with them and working properly.
okay, you mentioned the trams and the maintenance on the trams. We want to get those through the summer, correct? I mean, that's.
Yeah, we're going to. We're
Okay.
going to.
Is
That
that
was one of
something-
the things that I had to discuss because I had to figure out how much money it was going to cost.
Okay, is that something that Catalina Transportation takes care of, or is that a city obligation?
That's us.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You don't pay for it at all.
And you have the mechanics on your staff to do that?
Yes, I do.
Just a couple little things. Do you ever have joint pickup where I'm a senior and I want my dollar ride and then and to go to the boat and then somebody else is going to the boat, like from a hotel? Do you do those joint pickups?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we do.
And I have one other question. Just on tram day, was there something in the agreement about how many trams are running on cruise ship day? Because there's been a lot of comment that there's only one and people are waiting 20 and 30 and 40 minutes for the second tram.
What we do, no, there's nothing in the contract that currently states how many we have to run on cruise ship day. What we do, if the trolley driver actually calls our taxi booth, if the trolley is full. It doesn't happen very often, to be honest. I know there's those few little instances. And what we do is we actually send a taxi over there to pick them up for the same cost of the trolley and take them to their destination spot.
Okay. I beg to differ a little bit on cruise ship mornings when everybody's coming off at the same time, because I've been out there a few times.
Yeah,
But-
that's probably the one time of day, but really for
Right.
the most part throughout the day, it doesn't happen like that. And I can tell you through the numbers that we see and the amount of riders that get on at each stop and off at each stop, it's the majority, I think, is because most people, as soon as they get off the cruise ship, want to go to the botanical gardens. And what we do when that happens, and we know that they're full and there's too many people, is we do send the taxis, and we only charge them the $2 that you would be charged for the trolley.
Okay.
And then it goes on to the trolley paperwork.
Do you put a little sign up that says we are the tram, but we're
There's
small?
if you look at the signs that are at the stop, it also says it says
Okay.
trolley, and then it will say, or an additional taxi trolley may run as well.
Okay.
So we do put that there so that people are aware.
Great.
And then there's, our phone number is right
Yeah.
there. We've got our main office number and our taxi dispatch. So, and trust me, they call us all the time with trolley questions.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
They do.
Mayor Pro Tem Olson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This really discourages me because we've been talking about this program for 3 years. Nothing's changed. We see some people going out to advertise and sell more tickets. I know the breakdown, which I thought was a breakdown, it was a negotiated breakdown between the Dial-A-Ride, ART, and the trolleys. But if that's not the numbers that you attribute to it, because right now Dial-A-Ride and ART is $1,000 a day, is what the city's subsidizing.
Okay.
$270,000 for 9 months is $1,000 a day. And I don't see where the public's getting the value for the $1,000 a day.
Well, I have. Here. I can. Pass this around.
I know that this has been around for a long time, and it's,
Sorry, I need my glasses for this one. Getting blind in my old age. What I did here for you is by month, I gave you the ACT boardings, and then I gave you the Art and DAR ridership as well, to give you the total ridership, and it gives you the amount of money that the city gives us, as well as the fare box that we receive, to show you how much money we're receiving per rider. I mean, if you look, there's certain months out of the year where we're receiving very little per rider, then there's certain months out of the year where we're receiving a little bit more. But if you look at a yearly total, it's $6.66 per rider that we're actually getting. That's not a lot of money. I mean, it's not this huge amount of money that everybody seems to think we're receiving.
it's $250,000.
There's a lot of ridership on the trolley, and there's a lot of ridership for the Art and Dial-A-Ride. So, and the one reason that we can afford to do that on a lower level and for less money is because we already have a taxi company, so we can integrate the Art and the Dial-A-Ride people with our regular taxi fares. And because it's, they're getting a taxi ride for $1.50 or $2.
No, they're getting a taxi ride for $1.50, $2 plus $10 or
Well,
$12
that's what they're
city
paying.
dollars. Yeah. Like you said at the last meeting, you were just caught off guard. You just passed this out to us. We're kind of caught off guard, as I am, and I'd like to hold this over for 2 more weeks.
Well, I'd really like to request that we don't do that because I'm not going to be here in 2 weeks. If you're going to hold it over, I'd like to request that it's then the first meeting in July.
Is there a carry forward in the contract?
Is there a what?
Is there a way to keep the contract expired June 30th?
Well, it does expire then, so I don't know. I mean, I guess we could we could convene a special meeting perhaps at a time when Connie is present that doesn't fall on that council meeting Tuesday, if that's the pleasure of the
I
council.
appreciate this information. I just need a little bit of time to digest it.
That's fine.
Well, I think I respect what you're saying, Oli, but I think part of going in the RFP process is to do some education, see how this all works, and to extend the contract so that we don't
Maybe as a
lose.
suggestion, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I know what I'm trying to say, but
It's okay. But, we have a number of budget meetings coming up that you probably have seen some emails from Denise, and I think that if it's agreeable to everybody, we could add this as an agenda item on one of those meetings, maybe in a week or so, and allow time for council to look at this if that works.
And I have another question. Can I ask it while it's on my mind, please? I know you're asking to hold this over, but did I hear you correctly? The program for locals that we have, that we're $2, I think it's $2 a ride, the blue tickets, that's the Avalon Rapid Transit?
Right.
Okay, so the Avalon Rapid Transit, which is essentially the $2 per local, is then subsidized by this.
Right.
So you're not actually getting $2 a rider, you're getting
Right,
more
correct.
with a subsidy.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm getting $6.66 a rider.
$6.66. Oh, okay. Okay.
And my average taxi fare, just so that you're aware, I know what has been said in the past, but I went through and I did all the numbers, which I can bring to you, I can email to all of you. The average taxi fare is anywhere from $12.50 to $13. So that's half of what we get for our average taxi fare for a rider. I mean, just to keep that in mind. It's not like this insane amount of money that I think you're thinking in your head. It's really not.
I believe there's some work done a couple of years ago on how the allocations were split between the Dial-A-Ride and the trolley, and it was because you were keeping the fare box.
This right here includes the fare box.
No, but there was a rationale to how the money was allocated between the 2 programs, or the 3 programs.
Well, that may have been. That's before my time. I just know when I talked to Charlie, when he was the city manager, he really didn't know why or how it was determined that X amount went to the ACT program and X amount went to the Art and DAR program. He actually didn't know the answer to that question himself, so.
Well, I think if we could get the clarification of how the money's distributed between the 3 programs from your guys.
Well, I think though that that's what Roy is going to be doing, and that's one of the things we're going to be meeting with him about, is we're going to sit down and we're going to determine exactly how much should be going to the Art and Dial-A-Ride and how much should be going to the ACT.
I disagree. I think it's your business. You should know that.
Well,
you shouldn't have to look for outside consultants.
I do know that. I mean, but that's what I'm trying to explain to you, Oli, is that We actually right now currently just combine it all together. This is how we do our numbers right now. We've been told by the city, you want us to completely separate it. Because for us, this is how much we get to run all 3 programs. That's how we look at it as a company. And we take all the money to run all 3 programs. That's how we do things. I've separated it here for you so you can see how much it is per writer for the program. I can sit down, and that's one of the things I'm going to be doing with Roy, is to determine, because he had explained to me that he wants to take and make it 2 completely separate contracts, which is fine. And that's what part of what we're going to be doing is discussing how much should go to each program. I mean, if that's what you want to have an answer to in the next week, I don't know that I can have that answer for you in the next week.
2 weeks? 3 weeks? I don't know, it's a large chunk of money that's been distributed kind of like without any controls, with kind of willy-nilly, this is what we're doing. And
I know that it feels like it's out of control to you, and I know it feels like it's willy-nilly to you. It doesn't, most certainly doesn't feel like that to me. I work on this program probably at least 6 hours a day. So to me, it doesn't feel willy-nilly. I work many, many hours on gathering information for you guys, gathering the information so that I know this program is working, so that we're not losing money. I do this all day long.
okay, if you could separate
not-
the 2 big ones, you know.
And you
for all
want
some of the
that?
other
You
stuff.
want that within a week?
No.
This is what I'm asking you. Exactly what would you like from me?
It would be nice that we have the contract to relate to how the money is distributed between the 2 programs, the 3 programs. And so you're the only one that can tell us how to do that. The number we're using now is $1,000 a day for the taxis and whatever it is for
Was the contract up?
June 30th.
Well, and I have another question. Are there reports that are submitted that, I mean, since your cabs are also used for taxi cabs, do you have to break that out on what, so that we can see what you're paying for cab versus what we're paying for those same vehicles? Because I looked at and I'm talking kind of off the top years ago, and it looked like, you say we've got 14 cabs. Okay, well, it was the 14 cabs, it looked kind of like, man, we were paying for all the 14 cabs, and you still got to use them for taxi cabs. This was before you were here. So I don't know how you break that up so we can say, yeah, we want to make sure that we're not paying for cab service.
We figure out what the percentage of the art and dial-a-ride use is. Because what I do is I take how many taxi fares I have, how many art and dial-a-ride fares that I have, and we figure out what the percentage of art and dial-a-ride use there is. And that's how we figure our costs from our cab costs, because, for example, it goes anywhere from 1 month to 28%, and then it can go to 42%. Or, I mean, in the winter months, we have more art and dial-a-ride users, of course, than we do taxi fare users. So, like in December and January, the percentage goes way up. And then, in the summer months, the percentage goes down. And so you take that percentage, and then you take your costs that you spent through the year, because just like I did here, and I take the yearly, and then that's how you figure out what your percentage is. And that's how Karen's always given it to the city.
Okay.
That is actually, I'm sure if you look back in your records, you can see how she's giving you her total costs, and then showed you what the percentage was, and then showed you what the costs were based on that percentage.
Okay.
And you should have all those records there.
Yeah.
So
So
we've
Audra has
actually
that,
given
yes.
you what the costs are.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Just not getting up the ladder.
Council, questions or pleasure?
I will continue my request to hold it over to a scheduled budget meeting, which works best for your schedule.
And then what does that do if that's into July and the contract is
No,
expired?
we've got
Before-
a few in the next couple weeks. I think.
Before
that's
June
what you
30th,
said.
correct?
I have a budget meeting tomorrow.
It won't be
Yeah,
tomorrow. It
very
won't be
nice.
tomorrow. It won't be tomorrow, but we'll.
Connie, the one that's the farthest out is June 29th. That's a Monday at 3 o'clock.
Monday. Okay, no, that works for me on Monday.
Monday, the 29th.
Yeah, it's hard to tell you. I'm not looking at my calendar. But yeah.
Right, sure.
Is that okay with you, Oli?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
You can do some crunching.
So we're gonna.
Okay.
Anything?
Thanks, Connie.
sure. We're just going to take a little break. And while we're here, Rich can tell us how his day went over on the mainland.
Didn't go so well. We lost by 1. Semifinals. That's
But we're proud of
we
the
did good.
boys.
Boys had a great year.
Yes. Oh, thanks,
It was a great room.
Wow.
Had a great room.
The first one on the 15th.
One, right.
On the 16th.
Okay, item number 9.
Annie,
Yes.
did we do the council reports?
No, we've saved those.
Can we do that?
Well, we're going to do this, but we do have room for council reports. I mean, we kept them.
Can we?
Yeah, we could do
Do
it
you
now.
want to do them right now?
Yeah, if we can.
Keep these people here longer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
If I had to come that far, they.
Okay. We're going to move to council reports because that's what
No,
the council member would like to do.
we did the CR9.
Yes.
Yeah, that was going to be mine. Okay. So I guess.
Okay,
that-
let me just ask
do
you a
do want-
question.
Do you want to do one?
I have council reports,
Okay,
yeah.
well then,
Does
mine's
anybody
a
else
done
have?
deal.
Okay, Richard, Councilman Hernandez had questions about the CR&R
But
thing, and
that's
we did,
You already finished it?
already finished, so, yeah.
Okay, all right, so then, somebody else has a report? I'm a good listener.
Okay, so we're going to move to council reports. For all of- So anybody have any council reports? Councilmember Sampson?
For the most part, I want to thank the people of the city of Avalon for that didn't go along with the program or didn't totally approve of the program this weekend that we had up for whatever. I want to thank you for allowing that to go on and just seeing it through and being tolerant. And then on the other hand, I want to thank the people that came here to visit. They were very polite. They were easygoing. They were here to party and have a good time, but there was no incidents whatsoever by those people. There was no arrests made. They were kind to be around. They were friendly. They were fun. I just want to thank all those the winners and the contestants and the production agency that put that on, and just say that you guys did a great job. And the city of Avalon is very pleased with what you've done. And at the same time, if anybody has anything to add, maybe something, complaints, something that like they'd like their point of view to be acknowledged, please approach me and let me know. And I'm sure the other city councilmen would like to know, just so the next time maybe we can do things a little bit different to make it better, to make a great event even better or something like it. So that's all I wanted to say.
Great.
It was a learning process. It was a learning process for everybody. It was good. It was.
I learned a lot about rap. But anyway, so anything else?
I have
Councilmember
a
Campbell?
couple.
You want to?
No, go ahead. I was going to do the CNR, but we've already done that. so
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I had an opportunity to tour the sheriff's station and met some of our new officers, and I just wanted to thank Captain Federal for that lovely tour, and it was very interesting, learned a little bit about some of our process here, and surprisingly had not actually been through, saw a lot of the upgrades of the station, so thank you for that. I will be going tomorrow to the Gateway Cities Council of Government monthly meeting and also the Transportation Committee meeting tomorrow night. And my last item that I wanted to address was members of the community. And essentially, you know, over the past 2 or 3 weeks, I've had a lot of the members of the community seek time with me to discuss freight-related concerns. And I know back on April 21st, I mentioned that I had not had anybody reach out to talk to me about freight. And ironically, the requests that I've received lately and the conversations that I have had, given enlightenment and other information, I agree that I really need to be reporting out on some of the things that are happening and things that are coming my way and allegations made at council meetings and whatnot. And a lot of the people that I have a conversation with are saying, why don't you tell the people this? Why don't you be honest? Why don't you put this in the public and let everybody have the information for themselves? And so pretty much those are my sentiments. We've talked a lot on this dais about getting information to the public, involving the public, throwing out this all too familiar word right now about transparency. And I really feel like we need to take a giant step backwards. And instead of focusing on being transparent, I think we need to focus on being truthful. I think we need to put the cards out on the table. Let us stop using this word transparent and let us start being truthful. I'm disheartened at the way that I've personally been treated. Pam Albers asked me at the last council meeting if I or my husband was in any negotiations regarding Pebbly Beach building supply. I think it's a cowardly and covert way to try to instill a concern in the community that I'm acting inappropriately, which is very sad, even coming from somebody who's my friend and also my personal lawyer, and has been for the last several years. When in reality, Mr. Coffey's the one who hasn't been truthful in the discussion. He should discuss our conversation publicly, that he was the one who reached out to me to discuss his business with my husband, not the other way. Mr. Coffey and I had a clear and professional conversation about the Cassidy family, and he knows that we could have done building supplies for the past 40 years, should the family have wished to, but that's just simply not the way that we operate. Mr. Coffey knows full well that if we wanted to do building supply, we could mobilize within a week. Same location, no need of additional space. That's just not how we operate. It's not our way. The Cassidys waited for 2 years before putting in office supplies at the stationery store. They were gone for 2 years, and finally, after so many requests, we put them in. We waited months, almost a year, and had a handful of conversations with the purveyor of the nursery before greatly expanding on our garden section, and only after she assured us she was not going to set up shop in another location, we expanded our business. The Cassidys have attempted to do a propane exchange bottle program for years, more than 9 years, and had clearly discussed this with Catalina Freight Lines. When it was to come to fruition, Catalina Freight Lines said they couldn't transport the bottles loaded and turned down the transportation to the Cassidys, but guess what? 2 months later, guess what they were doing? Propane exchange. It doesn't seem very truthful to me, but the Cassidy way was to just walk away from it and not make a big deal. And now it's been years ago that this has happened. Some members of the community are concerned about the way in which they feel they've been spoken to by Mr. Curtin and his request for them to sign his petitions, not really discussing his intentions or what he really wanted to do with his plan, and certainly not the fiscal impacts of the city. One person said he waved his papers in front of them asking that if he wanted to lower the fuel prices in town, they needed to sign his petition, but not discussing all the other impacts associated with it. And others that I've called on his petition to just seek information why they signed the petition, what this meant to them, have disclosed similar tactics and various topics in this manner. I've stated in a council meeting previously that I referred to a meeting that the mayor and I had with Curtin Maritime, including Martin Curtin and members of his staff. The mayor was there in person and myself on the phone. Mr. Curtin listed out his conceptual business proposal to us, which included some of the following: that he did in fact believe that along with any other provider of service, they should have equal accessibility to land freight at Pebbly. That he is requesting that the city of Avalon request a state lands lease be put in the city's name. Now, I can't discuss that, but that was what his request was. So Richard and I would both abstain from that. He's also, in his conceptual business plan, said if the city of Avalon were to be a leaseholder of a landing block, that Curtin Maritime would request that the city demand passage rights on the land where the block sits at Pebbly Beach to unload freight to any provider. Now, to me, demand passage right, that's the big white elephant in the room that's been referred to. And I know Mr. Councilmember Sampson referred to it as, or we could just take it. And that means eminent domain. This would cost taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees, and it would also cost millions of dollars in fair market value for the property that it seeks. I think the public needs to be aware that that's part of the discussion. If the city were to be successful in its demand for passageway, Curtin Maritime then mentioned to the mayor and I that he would request the city supply him a location to process their freight and establish a fueling station. His mention to us was first for an acre of land at the Field of Dreams, and then he subsequently changed it to a half an acre. And that would allow him to put his fuel station and his freight turnaround in town. And of course, our response was a typical, we don't own that land, and that land is intended for recreational use. We don't own the land. We don't have the right to do that. So end of conversation for that. And for me personally, I'd rather see a pool and a community center in that space rather than a freight facility and a fuel station. And these were Martin Curtin's comments to the mayor and I at the same time. I clearly stated to Mr. Curtin during this discussion that he should get the permits and do freight at the mole landing. And his response would be, I believe, $4 million in permit and legal fees that he wasn't interested in going after. I asked about Hamilton Cove and received a no-go, not interested. Truth is, there are other options to land freight, but they don't fit within Mr. Curtin's business plan. I support, as I've said many times, anyone who wants to do freight. Secure your land leases, get your business plan and your business model together, and come back for a letter of support. Let's be truthful about all the intentions, and let's let the public know what's really being discussed. We've talked about fuel prices. I requested the agenda topic, which we finally received at the last council meeting, to show the public that the city purchases its fuel from Mr. Coffey's business at the cost of $4.65 per gallon. That was the last shipment at that time. The sale price being approximately $6. The city's been transparent about those costs associated with a markup of the fees. But why hasn't there been any discussion about who really makes the money on fuel? Really what the public should be asking for is Catalina Freight Lines to be truthful about where the cost of fuel comes from. If they're purchasing fuel at $1.95 a gallon and selling it to the city for $4.65 a gallon, who's really the one bending the prices of fuel? Doesn't the fuel get picked up by Seaway Company, transported through Catalina Freight Lines, and aren't both of those owned by Mr. Coffey? Mr. Scott Bryan, he should be truthful about his real affiliation with Catalina Freight Lines and what skin he's actually got in the game here. He's been acting as a concerned citizen regarding the freight for all these months, but he hasn't been truthful about his history with freight. His mother's connection with Pete Finney and the Finney family, which was the previous owner of Catalina Freight Lines, and his previous business connections with Rich Coffey. I'd like to hear the truth about the financial impacts that might be represented to him. I don't think any member of the Council of the City of Avalon would ever say that they want a monopoly on any business. No one has said that yet, and no one will. In the 9 years I've lived on this island, I have never heard about there being a monopoly on freight, and there isn't today. That's a slight disrespectful to Catalina Flying Boats, who currently handles a ton of food and beverage freight and most packages to the island, including our U.S. mail. How come there wasn't any discussion about monopolies on freight before this process? How come Mr. Coffey and Catalina Freight Lines hasn't fought to open up their facility for the past decade to other companies? Hasn't Mr. Coffey actually fought against anyone else bringing freight to the island in the past? And lastly, I'm now in possession of a threatening letter towards members of our city council, written by one of many of Curtin Maritime's legal teams. Mr. Curtin, you didn't seem to have any issue of conflict of interest in the past few meetings that we've had, or sending letters to me or asking me to help you, such as the party status discussions. In fact, I have many emails from your team engaging me in freight discussions. When you and I sat down a few months ago, Mr. Curtin, you told me word for word, when everything comes out, you better figure out what side of the fence you're on. I felt threatened by you then, and I certainly feel threatened by you now. I'm ashamed that you would stoop to such a level, and ashamed that you cannot be truthful to this community. I stand strong, as I've had to fight in nearly every single council meeting, that I will do the right thing by this community and the responsibilities of the office that I have taken. And I'll tell you what side of the fence I'm on now. Doing the right thing for the people of Avalon and serving my community, and most importantly, being truthful and transparent.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
Well, I've been gone for 3 weeks, but in spite of my absence, I'm very happy that the weekend turned out so well. I've heard good reports on it. The stuff on YouTube is good. I think the city staff did a great job. Chamber did a good staff. I think some of the fears that were out there, I didn't necessarily have those because I knew that Bud Light needed to keep their corporate image clean, and I think they did a heck of a job of it. And I'm sorry I missed it. And next Thursday, I'm going to Sacramento to go to a revenue tax meeting and a community services meeting for the League of California Cities.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a few things. I guess we do need to announce, because there was some information that I got from the city that had some confusion about the Public Utilities Commission coming on June 8th, and they are in fact coming. Because remember at your note, you said, oh, it looks like they were looking to move it to July.
I don't know that we know for certain that that date has been set. I've received correspondence which I've pushed out to you guys where they're trying to determine a date still. There's been a request for a date change, and I have not heard back from the administrative law judge on that. So it was initially proposed for June 8th, but I'll have to send a note to the judge and find out where that sits.
Okay, and when they do that, they kind of notice it like we notice,
Yes.
a couple of weeks in advance.
In fact,
and
that's
that
the
kind
one
of
thing the judge asked me for was the addresses of the local newspapers so that they could put notice in there. And I would say, judging by the fact that it's already the 2nd and there haven't been any notices, that would probably seem to me that they might not be doing it on the 8th, but I'll find out for certain
Okay.
and let you know.
Okay.
I think probably the confusion, because I've gotten those questions as well, is that Mr. Scott Bryan has been posting in the arcade that the CPUC public hearings will be held on June 8th at 7 p.m. at the Country Club main dining room.
Because we were told
So,
that by...
yeah, so that's been posted, and I've had several questions about that, and I've been trying to get some sort of...
Okay.
Is that where it's going to be, is the country club?
Excuse me?
Yes.
Is that where it's going to be, is the country club?
That's what I've been told that the
By
CPUC decided.
By whose choice?
The CPUC.
They chose the country club.
On the same note,
Why
yeah.
not a neutral place?
Excuse me, just real quick.
Okay, I have an email from the public advisor sent today at 1:22 p.m. It says that the public participation hearing in the above entitled matter will be held at the date, time, and location above, June 8th, 2015, 7 p.m., 1 Country Club Drive.
At the country, is that the country club?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it's fine. But I sent this email to Annie earlier just to confirm, so I can forward it along.
I'm with you.
Why would it be at a city, somewhere like the city council chambers or the school auditorium?
Well,
Why at the country club? People aren't going to, a lot of people
I think
won't
it's
show up
important.
because it would be there.
Sure. I think it's important for council to know that I had no part in making that assignment. I mean, I want to be crystal
Okay.
clear about that the administrative law judge contacted me and asked me where they could potentially hold meetings, and I had suggested the council chambers. I also had said, if you're worried
Okay.
about capacity, you might want to try the school gym, and that was the end of the discussion.
Okay,
So-
well, a lot of people are intimidated by the Island Company, and since they own that facility, I suggest that we inform the CPUC that there would be a more appropriate location that would be neutral and for the community members, that is.
If it's the pleasure of the council, I can certainly contact the administrative law judge on that matter.
Yeah, I also have a concern with that, not only for the fact is, we went through this before with Edison Company.
Edison.
And it was everything went bad. There was things said that we didn't have recorded. To get us a copy of their disc, they never gave it to us. I assume that we'd have it here in the courthouse because everybody has access to here and not everybody could go to the country club. If we could get everybody to do it here and televise it so everybody could have a part of it as opposed to going up there. I don't want to see the same thing happen at the SC meeting because there was stuff said there was different times, there's a whole bunch of misinformation that we've gotten and we still haven't gotten all our information from them.
Still didn't get the videos
Yeah, we
either.
still didn't get the videos from them in the past, so if there's any way possible, I'd like to have it down here in the council chamber.
Well, and I had also asked Ben, and he contacted them about being able to record it, and they didn't have any problem with us recording it. Is that correct?
Right,
Is that
so
what we-
I had sent an inquiry as to whether it was possible to record wherever it was, and the judge had responded back with certain requirements that they would need to adhere to, and I think we can satisfy all of them.
I'm very concerned that if you say they have a public hearing notification process that's similar to ours, and last week we weren't even sure it was happening, and now it is, how is the community supposed to know? And I guess if it is happening, we should be putting it on all social media, on our city webpage, and whatever.
Well, forgive me, I didn't see the email from earlier today, but
Yeah.
we have known And it is a CPUC meeting. It's not, I mean,
Right.
I don't have any part in.
But they aren't
scheduling.
required to provide 2 weeks notification to the
But
public?
there's no, the CPUC has its own requirements as far as, what they do for noticing meetings. and
Notification, yeah.
Again, it's
Okay.
outside of our, well, of course, now that we have confirmation, we will do our best to get the word out. Of course, we'll put the
Good. So-
notice on the city website. We'll blast out an
Is this a
email.
meeting or a hearing?
You received that email directly?
I get notice, the all-party communication on behalf of the city, and that's why I've been printing and pushing those out to you, because as your delegate, I get that, and I push it to you.
Okay, no, I just want to make sure we don't get that information from someone else, that
Secondhand.
actually is information that was given directly to the
Yeah,
city.
I'll check my email from earlier today. I should have received it.
So are we saying, okay, is it possible to get it down here?
I don't know. If you direct me to, I will
Well,
contact the judge.
I think, given the sentiments of the council, rather than direct, I think that it's appropriate for the city manager to contact the CUP and see if we can have it moved down here or at the auditorium.
We're still, again, that's what we had before.
Right.
Up there with Edison, and
Right.
it was a fiasco. And I would really recommend that we could get it down here at any cost. If possible, it's okay with the council.
And prepare that we might have a lot of people here, and I want to encourage people to come here, but we might want
Put
to
some, put
maybe
some
make,
TVs.
make some TVs available in the other room, just in case it's big, but,
Yeah.
like we
So
did
we
for
need,
Sunday.
we need, I personally, I think we need it here, if at all possible.
I'll
Well,
send
we give
communication to the
direction to you guys?
administrative law
Yeah,
judge, and I'll
He
make
doesn't
that
need
request.
direction, he's going to do it.
Okay,
I concur.
Thank you.
okay. And I had spoken to Ben about the possibility of having a up for whatever debrief in about a week. So I would like us to set that date, get that information out there, and invite people to give their comments, pro, con, just whatever. Whatever. How many times do we say that in a day now? It's wonderful. So, so I'd like us to get that going. And also, if we could somehow get a list of all the donations that were made around town. And of course, I talked to Ben about sending out thank you letters and coming up with some kind of a piece of recognition that we could send to Anheuser-Busch, Mosaic, PRG.
We're working on that right now.
Yeah. So, so the Public Utility Commission is coming to talk about the Edison tariffs, correct? We have that date solid?
That's, yeah.
It's on the
that's-
21st, correct?
Yes, and that's a separate division of the
separate from
CPUC, separate matter.
Right.
That's actually a meeting, public meeting between Edison, the city, and the CPUC staff,
Right.
when we're going to talk about the existing water tariffs and any desires to change them. And the
Right.
thought with that was that, have Edison there because they write the proposed tariffs, the CPUC approves them, and then we, of course, live under them. So what
Okay.
I was hopeful was that each council member could get concerns that they have either from themselves or from their own constituents, they could bring them to me, and on your behalf, I'll send all of them to the CPUC and to Edison, so that everybody knows what we're going to be talking about and can be as best prepared as possible.
Okay.
And that'll be in a meeting also, right?
Yes.
Public hearing, public hearing.
That'll be here.
And that's going to be here.
Yes, yes.
And that's a regular city council day or no?
It's not a
Oh, it's
regular.
not.
July?
No, June.
Friday.
Oh, June.
Oh, June.
No, I believe it's
July.
I believe it's July.
I'm sorry.
July 21st is a
Right.
regularly scheduled council meeting.
Right.
Okay,
It's
so
going
we
to
would
be a
like.
couple hours before the regular council meeting.
Right.
Okay, so we would like people, like Ben said, the city manager said, get that information to us and we'll try to compile and.
Yeah, you don't have to pretty it up. If there's duplicates, I'll toss them out, but yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Okay. Also, I think some of the council members last week met with a representative from Corex.
Oh, I forgot.
And it was very interesting. Yeah. I guess that's all I can say at this point.
Agreed. I met with Corex. I'm sorry. I've lost my weeks.
Yeah.
Yes, I did meet with Corex.
Okay, and I would like, if we have to bring it to council to give direction or whatever, I've gotten some complaints about the lack of safety on Avalon Canyon Road as you pull out Bird Park. The stop sign's right there. Now we've got electric bikes, of course, we've got golf carts, and perhaps, and I guess this would be Dennis, looking at some kind of maybe stops going this way and that way up Canyon to slow people down. And also, out at Pebbly Beach Road. And you always talk about that second blind spot, Joe, and I never quite know where the road kind of narrows.
Pebbly?
But maybe something at by Abalone Point, something to slow the cars down, whether it be signage or whatever. What's happening is the guys get off work guys and girls, get off work wherever they work on Pebbly Beach Road, and we all see it, and I've probably done it too. We're passing. And it's eventually, maybe if we can avoid a head-on or something. I mean, the fact that we haven't had one.
There's one rock that sticks up higher than the road on Pebbly Beach Road on the ocean side. It's on the left-hand side as you're going out, on the right as you're coming in. It's about 2/3 of the way out, and it's a blind corner. It's basically, the road narrows, and the path that you walk on narrows at that point. Okay. So that's the place that I was just talking about, that maybe there's something we could do to put a divider line there just to make it a little bit safer is all.
So I don't know if we have to bring it back on the council to do direction, or if this might be something.
Why don't we just take a look at that, Mayor? Your staff can examine these, and we can probably see what we can do on our end. We'll report back.
Okay. Got a couple of other things we may want to discuss. Not today. Code enforcement, I know there has been a little bit of discussion about changing their hours so that we can do additional enforcement of things. I know, so if the council is interested in having the staff look at that, might be something. And I just also want to notice that we're contracting out tree trimming. We're now working with ArborWorks, right, for tree trimming.
Well, I wouldn't say that you were unilaterally doing that. Right. We are for certain jobs where it makes sense with our workload. Yeah, we've done that in the past, and we will continue to where it makes sense.
Okay. I know there was some concern about some of the trees that maybe they were a little overzealous or not pruning them at the right time of year. And I think our staff is very capable of doing a lot of that, but perhaps you want to look at maybe some kind of a training where they learn a little more about horticulture. But that's for you and Dennis and whomever to discuss.
And we try to keep it in-house, but if
much as possible.
But if we don't, if it's a little bit something that's complex, then we can.
Like
we have ArborWorks.
Those big tall palm trees, I don't think we have the ability to get up 100 feet or whatever those big tall ones.
Right.
But anyway, just an observation. Okay, that's it.
Just one more thing.
Sure.
Just thank the churches for the weekend, taking care of our kids while everybody was downtown. Because the teen center was open extra hours, and they put on, I believe, extra staff to make sure that they could accommodate for all the kids that were out. And
Catalina Choices
as well.
Yeah, yeah, excellent job.
Yeah. And once again, Doug Federal and his staff, he directed his staff to do a great job. So, I mean, like we've said, there's many thank yous, but with no incidences, I think Doug deserves a pat on the back because he directed his sheriffs to do some really good policing that night. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. Thank you, Doug.
Okay, item number 9.
Okay, item number 9.
And for item number 9, council members Hernandez and Cassidy will be recusing themselves due to the fact that this directly involves the Island Company's lease.
Okay, item number 9 is a proposed letter to the State Lands Commission regarding competition for freight services. This is brought forward this evening at the request of Councilmember Sampson. There is a draft attached to the staff report, as well as the draft letter. There are also 2 prior letters that the City Council sent to the CPUC on this topic. This has been discussed multiple times, so I would defer to Councilmember Sampson at this point.
And also, just for the record, that the 2 recused council members received income from the Island Company.
Okay, the reason we're bringing this back up is because freight is so important to Catalina. Freight, water, trash, infrastructure. Freight is one of those things that everything that's brought To Catalina is brought over on the freight service. Yes, the monopoly has been in place for many, many years, but we need to start getting out of monopoly situations in things like this. The population is growing, the services are growing, people are expanding down the coast. We're getting to the point where we're filling up our landfill, which means we're going to have to start taking trash off the island. Water and fuel come over this way. There's a great chance that our fuel costs will be reduced if there's competition within that market. Also, if we're expanding freight services to different points down the coast, I want to make sure that Avalon is taken care of and the residents of Avalon are taken care of. I've had hundreds of people want competition in our freight service, as well as a shared land lease at Pebbly Beach, so that we can access that area ourselves as a community here in Avalon. I think we need to be in control of our destiny and in control of our future, and this would help us do that in many different areas. No, we don't own the land that's adjacent to the landing site out there, which the State Lands Commission owns that, and they lease it out, and I think it would be a good idea to have a part of that lease, a shared lease, that is. We're not, in this letter, I'm not saying that we are against Avalon Freight Service. I'm saying we are supporting Avalon Freight Service and the other qualified freight carriers as well. So I want to make that perfectly clear. I believe competition would benefit us here in Avalon. We need to get out off of the old way we used to do things and into a new way. And that future would help us grow for the benefit of the people in Avalon. That's why this letter was written. That's why I believe it's important that the Lands Commission understands what's going to benefit the people of Avalon, not just a certain grove of trees within the forest of this town. And I think it'll make us a healthier place for us to live and possibly economically benefit us as well. We'll have to work out the details of the leases, that is. Yeah, the Island Company owns the property adjacent to the landing ramp. We need an easement on there if we decide that we would like to involve other carriers in this process, which I don't see any problem in doing that. And at that point, that's about all I have to say about that for this moment. I'd like maybe someone else to inject some information and some input and to see where we're at with that. But that's definitely my stance and the stance of the constituency that I represent.
Okay, I would just like to ask a couple of questions, and the questions are mainly geared to the Island Company. I don't know, Chris or Paul, I don't know who would be the respondent, but so if you get the state lands lease for the ramp, and then just like our ramps, number one, we don't charge for them. So I'm assuming you don't charge, like you wouldn't charge Avalon Freight Service, or you don't charge the current person to use that ramp. Is that correct? Yes, please. But they can't just. Oh.
Chris Wilhelm, Catalina Island Company, 150 Metropole.
Thank you.
The access to the ramp is done through a sublease. The property is leased out to the operator, and so there's not a separate charge for access to the ramp.
Could that, so you're assuming, let's say the sublessor right now is Catalina Freight Line?
Correct.
Okay, so they, and that's interesting, I didn't know that. Okay, so if they wanted to let's say they continued on as the ramp person, or Avalon Freight Service, whoever, or the Island Company, would the scenario be like under the new thing, you would sublease the ramp to Avalon Freight Service?
Correct.
And because it's state lands, can it be restricted that they be the only ones that can use that?
I can't answer that.
Okay, does anybody know that?
The terms of the lease say, the terms of the sublease say that Catalina Freight is the only user of the freight ramp.
But the state lands have can they say, wait a minute, you need to keep it more open? Is that kind of what because, I mean, we let people use our ramps. And I don't think we can charge, I mean, I don't know, and now I'm talking about Coastal Commission, probably getting that confused with that.
We're also a municipal corporation, we're a city, and it's a different private property that you're talking about, and it's...
That ramp is public property, though, correct?
State land
Scott?
property. Who's
The state land, the ramp on the state lands portion is the state's property.
The state's property, which is the people, correct?
Correct.
Sure, go ahead.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Marshall. If anyone has a computer up, Article 10, Section 4 of the California Constitution is the specific doctrine in which governs California State Lands Commission. Now, don't quote me on this because I will be ad-libbing. It prohibits any individual, corporation, company, or thereof of refusing access to any tidelands, bay, and such navigable waters in any public purpose. So if you look up Article 10, Section 4 of the California Constitution, California State Lands' entire job, their governing doctrine specifically states that they're prohibited from allowing any group to deny access for public purpose. Now, in order to haul freight to Catalina, you need to have a public necessity and convenience permit issued by the Public Utilities Commission. So I think that goes a lot further into public purpose than allowing people to go down to the beach and dabble their toes in the water. So I invite all of you guys to read up Article 10, Section 4 of the California Constitution, which is specific governing doctrine for California state lands when it comes to issues like this. Now, since I'm on the state lands topic, to make a clarification, we did not request the city to take the submerged lands lease at Pebbly Beach. It has always been California State Lands' position to issue the lease to the backlands holder. It does not mean that they will not do that because they have done it in the past. Ultimately, what we requested of California State Lands is that they condition the lease, and that submerged lands would be any CPUC approved common carrier would be an approved sublessor. Because currently, what they're requesting is that Avalon Freight be the sole sublessor, which goes against Article 10, Section 4 of the California Constitution. And ultimately, they don't have a CPUC license at the present time, so if they're issuing that sublease now or approving it, it goes directly in the face of public purpose because that's two private entities. So does that answer the question?
Yes. Okay, and then I have a question, I think it is of the Island Company or whomever out there. So, oh, that's okay. Okay, so assuming the State Lands Commission said, yeah, you know, maybe, you know, more than one person should be able to use this ramp. But then, and then I'm wondering too, because the Island Company has stated that they want to perhaps, do their own freight. Well, if they say there's only room for one freight provider, because they are the landowner of that upland land, I just don't know how that works when you can say we only want one provider of freight, but we may provide our own, but just because it's our land, I guess that's where I'm a little confused. Chris, can you answer that? You kind of get where I'm going? Okay.
Chris Wilhelm, Island Company. So if the purpose of the proposed letter is to endorse the use of the Pebbly Beach facility by multiple users, then I suggest to you that the council is overlooking the myriad complexities and difficulties in operating a multi-user facility out on that small yard. I don't think it's reasonable to advocate for a multi-operator facility out there unless we've studied this extensively, because we've been looking at this for months, years, essentially, while this process has been going on. And the RFP process that was conducted was clear that only one operator would end up providing that service, and Mr. Curtin and all the rest of the people that responded to that RFP fully understood that and gladly engaged in that process. We believe there are some reasons why it has ended up that way. That there are some practical, logistical, safety, environmental reasons why a single operator there makes more sense than multiple operators. We would be, as the landowner and as the landlord of this operation, we would be concerned about the ability of that facility to handle safely multiple operators. The freight volume in and out of Avalon, I don't think would contest that volume of freight isn't going to increase simply because there are more operators. And so right now there are 3 entities that are suggesting they'd like to provide this service. There were as many as 8 involved in the RFP process, so it could be larger than 3. But if you take 3 as an example, for purposes of this illustration, 3 companies would essentially divide an existing business up 3 different ways between them. Currently, CFL service has an average of about 7 barge calls a week. I believe it's 6 days a week, and they have about an average of 1 charter barge every week. So about 7 calls a week. If 3 companies divided up that business, and let's just say it gets divided up evenly, that would triple the number of barge calls. And so now you would, instead of having 7 calls, you'd have 21 landings and departures from this small facility every week. It's, as soon as a barge lands, it takes about 2 to 4 hours to land, unload, and depart for each barge. And so tripling that number, you'd end up with that ramp occupied 6 to 12 hours a day just for the barge to do its job. Once the barge is departed, though, when you watch the operation, those containers and all of the material that's just been offloaded sit in that yard and frequently fill that yard to a capacity. And so I'm trying to imagine tripling the number of barge calls in and out of there, and the logistics of that is difficult, to be kind. So our concern would be, how would that operation function safely? Secondly, logistically, which barge operator gets the morning slot? Who gets the early morning call, which we assume would be the highest demand call, so that whoever the shipper was gets their materials first, gets their materials early in the morning, so they can stock their restaurants or Vons or whoever is shipping to their business. It would seem like that would be the prime time slot, and there would be some jostling to try to get that. Who arbitrates that? Do we assume that the 3, 4, 5 operators would decide that amongst themselves? The questions that come falling behind that assumption that we can just assume that a multi-operator facility can work are huge. Who arbitrates disagreements between the companies? Who's responsible for expediting freight off of the yard so that the other barge number 2 that's coming in that day is going to wait not for the barge number 1 to get off the ramp, but they're going to wait for the freight to get out of the yard before they can land and offload their freight. So who expedites freight getting out of the yard? Who expedites the process of getting the next ramp cleared so the next barge operator can land? And so we don't see the consumer benefited in any of this. It just creates confusion. One suggestion might be, well, maybe to avoid some of these problems, we'll split the days up. And so operator A can have Mondays and Thursdays, and operator B can have Tuesdays and Fridays. And so now you're asking the shippers, the customers, to figure out who's delivering the service on Monday versus who's going to deliver my goods on Tuesday, and having to figure this out on the mainland. So they're having to send their goods to operator A, B, or C's mainland yard, and then figure out that they have to contract for their drivers to show up at that yard to get it delivered on a Monday or a Tuesday. And that operator will change every day if you split it up. So we don't see how that benefits the customer either. If the point of the letter is to say we advocate opening up freight service to the island to anybody, then that makes a lot of sense. And somebody already mentioned the option of maybe going to the mall. There are probably other locations where that service could work. And we would suggest and urge you to change the letter or revise the letter slightly to just say, we support opening up freight service to the island. But freight service at Pebbly Beach is constrained by its size. It's constrained by weather and tides that we all understand, and all of the other logistics that I've pointed out. So that's our response.
Okay, thank you. So let me ask you another question, though. If you, okay, so, but let's, the reason I'm wanting to keep that open-minded is into the concept of open competition past your competitive process for freight service is if in the divine wisdom, once again, of the PUC and the State Lands Commission, if they're not getting if they're just getting, we are open, and they decide through their wisdom that it might have to be done. That's the kind of opening that I want to leave, because I don't want to say no, 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 and then they come back and go, well, no, this is, because the battles that are going on between the four of you, the providers and you, I don't know how that's going to play out. And so I want to be open, so depending on how it plays out, we're not stuck. And because I guess the other thing on the ramp, so you say, okay, because if you have your own freight coming in and now you've got the ramp, so it's not just a sole provider, it's you and Avalon Freight Service. But if somebody else said they got the common carrier status or whatever that term is, and they found a place. They tore down the Catalina Island Inn and put a place in there for freight to be, let's say. That easement that you said is interesting, to be able to say, okay, you can drive through our property to get there.
So all of the complicated logistics that I went through, and I know that must have been confusing, but all of that still stands. You still are having to accommodate a second or third or fourth carrier coming onto that ramp and coming through that property.
But if the PUC tells you, sorry, you got to do this, you would work it out, wouldn't you?
I would imagine, you're talking about a taking of private property, though, to do that,
The
right?
logistics?
No, if the PUC said, because you have this, if they say, no, we think open competition is good and therefore let's have a couple of carriers, and then they go, well, the only ramp is, and if you are then the bottleneck that won't make that happen, because let's say they just wanted to, they have a truck on the back of the barge and they drive it off and they drive it into town and take it to Catalina Island Inn. You can deny them access, is correct? Because you say it's complicated, even though the PUC may say we like common carriers, try to work with them. I don't know.
For the state or any agency to do that, they can't just condition it. They'd have to take the property to do it for public purpose. They would have to state that there's a public benefit for that.
Okay, hold on.
I'm not in a debate. I just am answering the question.
Okay, alrighty.
So we're really talking 4 carriers now, right? Because the island company is going to carry their own freight, correct?
No.
No, they're not. So you've
We don't
withdrawn?
intend to- we have no current intent to do that.
Okay, because...
AFS is the selected provider. They're going to operate and run the freight business.
Okay.
Okay, I have read
our choice.
a letter that says that the island company would like to maintain the ability to carry their own freight.
We may have the ability to do it if something happened to AFS or if something happened to the level of service, but that's not our intent right now.
That's something that the city wants to, and that's what this is all about, is benefiting the people of Avalon. The logistics are something that the captains of these boats and the owners of these businesses are well capable of coordinating.
You could imagine that 3 competing companies could work out the kinds of logistics we're talking about? 'Cause we
Absolutely.
cannot.
Yes, great companies. You
Okay,
guys,
but just
yeah,
agree
they
to
do
disagree.
They do it really well.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I don't have any more questions at this time, Chris. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, if we, oh, hi Kathleen, I'm sorry.
Hi, Kathleen, 205 Crescent, the M Restaurant. Have any of you been out to the barge and sat there and watched what happens on any day of the week? I pick up my freight and have for the last 5 years by myself 2 to 3 days per week. Half of the time, God bless those people out there that work that do such a great job, but my freight is lost somewhere. There are trucks in the middle that I can't even get in to park to get my freight, and I have to wait 10 to 15 minutes. There is 1 slot for a refrigerator truck. There is 1 slot for a freezer truck. If we have 3 companies or more, who is going to say who gets in that slot first, and how am I going to know as a business owner when I can go and pick up my freight? I am used to every day I am out there between 8:30 and 9 a.m. because then the Catalina transfer is already gone by then. I have done this for the last 5 years, and I know my freight will be there on time in its place. Sometimes I have to go to other restaurants and locate my food because it got picked up by somebody else. I can't even imagine if there's even 2 carriers, much less 3 carriers out there. There is no room for trucks. There's trucks in the middle, there's trucks on the side, there's construction stuff stacked on the other side. It's crazy out there. It's not safe. Right now, sometimes it's not safe with 1 carrier trying to keep it all under control as they're joggling stuff to move it around to get your freight where it needs to be so you can pick it up. As a business owner who has done this for several years, to me, I'm a family member, but it doesn't matter who the freight company is. Having more than 1 person out there, to me, is extremely unsafe. And I can't operate my business as a business owner to not know when I can get my freight from whom. So is the freight company going to be decided that it's already full, stacked up higher than I am, whose freight goes where, and whose turn it is to come in when? I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm out there 3 days a week, and maybe you should go out there 3 days a week and sit there for 4 to 5 hours and see what those people go through to try to get our freight organized for us. They do a fabulous job. But to throw somebody else into the mix, or when we have these special events that come over, if any of you were out there on Wednesday and Thursday of last week when whatever came over, it was a nightmare out there. Not to say that they weren't doing their job. There was so much freight going in different directions and people trying to figure out whose truck was whose and where who could park to get what freight that, you know, I think you need to go and sit out there for 4 to 5 hours a day before you say it is totally doable. I am this super organized person, and everybody in this room knows how organized I am, and I would not even want to take on that challenge. They do an exceptional job, but to try to throw somebody else into the mix, whether it's the current owner stays there or whoever, doesn't matter to me. But if you really look at it and you go spend the time out there and you try to figure out who's going to say who gets to come to that dock when, and when they're sitting out there with barges that they can't get in because of the tide, and you're sitting there desperately waiting for your freight because you have customers who need their food, who's going to depict that you say you can come first and you can't come to the dock now? And we have all these trucks that are half full because US Foods uses this freight company and Cisco uses this freight company and our Aranaga uses this freight company and Worldwide Produce uses this company. How are we going to know where the stuff is? The purveyors I deal with, one contracts with one company, one contracts with another company. One's there at 8:30 in the morning, the other one's not there till 8:30 at night. I can't spend 2 hours of my day going out and getting freight. No business in town can. I think you really need to seriously go out there and sit for hours on a day and watch what really happens out there before you decide that you say multiple carriers easily could do this. That's absurd in my eyes. From 5 years of experience, 2 to 3 days a week, I can't even see how that would be possible. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Hi, Joanna Vojkovic, Arnold, 127 Marilla. And first of all, I want to know if Curtin Maritime won the award for this contract, would this even be a discussion right now about the PUC and all of this? Would they have said, oh, you know, we won that contract, but we don't want to be a monopoly and take this all for ourselves. I think we should share that property. I don't think we should take that contract. We have to share it with somebody. I highly doubt that would be a discussion. This is just so sour grapes to me. It really irks me. Also, we're talking about the city. Mr. Sampson mentioned last time at the meeting that, well, we could just take it over. So we're talking about thousands, hundreds of $1,000s in lawyer fees, because I don't think the island company is just going to say, oh, the city wants the freight lines. Well, let's just give it to them. It's their property. They're going to fight you tooth and nail for you, the city, us, the city taxpayers, to pay for eminent domain of the barge landing, the state lands out there. They're not going to give it to you willingly. And then we have to buy the building attached to the landing for market value. So where's the city going to come up with the millions and millions of dollars? Well, not millions and millions, but more than millions, several $1 million to buy that property. We have public restrooms when you get off the boat that are disgusting. Our sewage problem is still an issue. Our water problem is an issue. But we're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to fight the island company for eminent domain, and then the city, I know that the city has a lot of responsibility, but I can't imagine the city then being in charge of our freight and what goes on out at the freight lines. I don't know, Kathleen got up and talked about the logistic nightmare of the freight lines, and I agree with her. You have to go sit out at the freight lines and see what goes on. I have been in the food business in this town for 30 years and been deeply involved in the freight lines. And two different companies coming in just does not make any sense. So back to the eminent domain thing. So that means that if the city does write this land to state lands and it denies the island company the right to use of that ramp, that means it becomes a public, then kind of like a public utility, and the city then owns or has to buy that property from the island company. And I just don't know where the city, I know we got $500,000 from whatever, but that's not going to come close to coming up with the money to buy that. And sharing it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But Mr. Curtin, if he wants to go, Hamilton Cove was used before in the past, the Mole. I mean, he can start his own business, and saying it's a monopoly when we do have Catalina flying boats. We also have FedEx coming to the island, and we also have UPS coming to the island. So you can't say that there's no other options for people. And I would like Mr. Sampson to read his letter to the public right now that he is writing to state lands, if you don't mind reading that letter that you're writing.
Not at all.
I would like to stand here because I have a comment, because I've already read the letter, and I have a comment after you read it.
Okay, California State Lands Commission, 100 Howe Avenue, Suite 100, South Sacramento, 95825-8202, regarding Santa Catalina Island Company lease number PRC 7378-1. Honorable State Lands Commission, on April 23rd, 2015, you considered agenda item C100 regarding the issuance of a general lease in the Pebbly Beach area of Avalon to the Santa Catalina Island Company for use as a freight barge landing facility. That item was continued to June 15th so that your staff could gather additional information regarding the implications of the ongoing Attorney General and California Public Utilities Commission processes on that lease. The purpose of this letter is to clarify the city's position on competition for freight services. It has been said that the city's October 21st, 2014 letter supporting Avalon Freight Services, California Public Utilities application was in effect the city's endorsement of one and only one freight provider to the city, and a vote against competitive freight service. This is not accurate. By this letter, however, the city wishes to clearly communicate to the State Lands Commission that it is not wedded to the continuation of a single freight provider at Pebbly Beach. The city's interests are with its citizens and are guided by the cost and quality of freight services that they receive. The city is unequivocally in favor of any leases or approvals that would result in high quality and low cost freight services, whether by 1, 2, 3, or more providers at Pebbly Beach. The city believes the competition is a powerful motivator and supports the ability of multiple freight providers to have the opportunity to compete for our citizens' freight businesses sincerely.
All right, first of all, did you write that letter, Mr. Sampson?
This letter is a letter.
Handwritten by you?
This is my letter.
It has your name on it, but was it written by you? Because I've heard you speak many times before, and never have I heard you speak with such legalese.
Well, of course,
that hardly sounds like something that you have written yourself. It sounds like it was written by a lawyer to me. My personal opinion, but it sounds like it was written by a lawyer and not actually by you.
These are my sentiments.
Okay, your sentiments, but
Exactly.
not written by you.
Yes, some of this letter was written by me.
Some of this letter.
That's right.
The unequivocally, the city unequivocally.
This is my letter, okay? And I don't appreciate you standing there telling me that this is not my letter, and I don't approve of
I just heard
it.
you speak, and it's hard for me to believe that you wrote that letter.
Well,
but if you did that,
I don't appreciate you insulting me like this, okay? You don't get up here and you don't bash me like this. Okay, I'm done with this.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Maybe you should sit down, okay? Let somebody else speak. No, maybe you should sit down and let somebody else speak.
I can talk too, Miss. You yell at other people for talking. I can talk too, and I just feel that you are against anything that the Island Company wants to do. I too was fired by the Island Company. I was in their first round of firing, so I am no proponent of the Island Company, but I do not deny that they've done some wonderful things in this town. I don't necessarily like the way they go about things or what they've done.
Okay, excuse me, I don't think that's the direction this should be
Anyway,
going.
I just think that he has some kind of judicial bias in all of this. He votes against everything the Island Company wants, and I feel that if both Cindy and Richard have to recuse themselves, then Mr. Sampson should maybe recuse himself too for judicial bias. Because I've looked back through meetings after meetings, and he doesn't seem to want to do anything that the Island Company wants to do. So I just wanted to bring that out too. In closing, I'd like to say the city of Avalon can really not afford to buy the freight lines or force the Island Company to sell it to them. Where are we going to come up with these tax dollars to do this?
And I don't know where you got the impression that the city has given direction to go for eminent domain.
We haven't, but from what Cindy read in her staff meeting notes right before the meeting.
Okay.
That's where I got that information.
Oh, okay.
And so I was wondering about that.
Okay.
And also everybody proposed the same price to the PUC, so we're not talking about a great reduction in price of the freight. Maybe the gas, because Cindy also mentioned the hiking of the gas prices that's been going on currently. Maybe we will save money in gas when somebody else comes in because they won't be gouging us for $3 a gallon. But otherwise the freight's going to be the same price. They all propose the same price. So we're not talking about any reduction in freight costs. So I don't understand. So this is a customer service issue. So we're having all this discussion to see who's going to do the best customer service. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm sorry, I did not mean to insult you, Mr. Sampson. I'm sorry, I did not mean to insult you.
Thank you, Joanna. Yes.
Okay, with that said, may I say something?
Sure.
Okay, I'm mandated, and I was voted in this office to protect the people of Avalon. It has nothing to do with the Island Company. The Island Company, I'm fine with the Island Company. They do many great things in this town. My family wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the Island Company. I'm here to represent the people of Avalon, to get them better freight service, lower cost, more convenient service. And you know what? We have some issues to work out at Pebbly Beach, but we don't want to buy that facility. That's something that would be mandated by the Public Utilities Commission. We're not gonna have anything to do that. And hopefully it would be a deal that would be a handshake with the island company as well. And you know what? Quite frankly, right now, there's a lot of people moving around in here, and it's making me extremely nervous. I don't like it, and I wish everyone would please sit down. And if that's a request I can make, I would really appreciate it. Or else leave the room, one or the other. But I would rather you stay here and just sit down like everybody else instead of pacing back and forth, sneering at me and things like that.
I think it's an appropriate request to have one person come up to the podium at a time and everyone else sit down and just take it one person at a time.
Right.
I appreciate that. Sir?
May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, City Council, and citizens of Avalon. You don't know me. My name's Harley Franco. And I, with...
Try to stay in front of the mic. I appreciate
and
you trying to
with
talk to
Mr.
him.
Bombard, responded to a request for proposal. There was a process put out by a group of consultants, pilots, government here, local council, citizens, and we answered the process, and it was a competitive process. So to say that there was no competition, that in itself is a falsehood. There were many criterias that we all had to answer, safety being a paramount concern. I have been insulted because of the email going around by Mr. Scott Bryan that we have no experience in freight services. I built and founded a business for 28 years ago. I move freight throughout this country. And to say we have no experience or expertise or care or concern for what we do is an outright lie. I want everybody to know, and we've passed out all the safety and environmental awards that my company has won. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, safety or the environment, and it's only about price, shame on you. I respect what you do. Please respect what I do. I am a logistics provider. I don't believe you are, Mr. Sampson, and you think it's very easy to do what we do. Safety is the #1 concern. I spend millions of dollars a year on training. I was the only person, we were the only group, excuse me, I'm talking.
And just a little.
We were the only
you can't
group.
yell at the council like
We were the only
this.
group.
Just a
We
little
were the only
quiet.
group.
Excuse me.
I had to listen to you rant and rave. You
can't
can listen to me.
You can't yell at the council like this, okay?
I'm not. I'm passionate about what I do. Please understand the difference between passion and yelling. I take offense on how this whole circus has taken place now. We were the successful bidder of this whole process, and now we're being defamed. We don't have experience. We're gonna do all these things. And all I did was answer the RFP as honestly and transparently and with our experience. And now we have to go through this whole process. We've already spent money building the equipment. The most state-of-the-art, environmentally sensitive equipment, because Catalina hasn't had an upgrade in 50 years on the freight side. And it's about time. There are safer vessels. There are many better procedures, policies. We were the only ISO operator that answered this proposal. Do you know what ISO is? Does that matter to you?
Industrial standards of operation.
They are safety standards. But it doesn't seem like that counts in anywhere, any shape or form. And I take offense to that because safety is our business. So I've passed out all the different awards we've won to displace the rumor or the misstatement that we have no experience. Second, How can you go through a process of sending out one letter and now you're going to revoke it and change it after you had the whole council go through this? How many times are you going to do this? So we're going to come back again and again and again, and we have to rewrite this letter because somebody doesn't like how it's written? I'm sorry, I just think it's a very unfair. There was a level playing field. All of us answered it. We were victorious. We won it. And now we're being punished. We're being called all kinds of inexperience. We raise it unnecessarily. We do all these things. Shame on you. What did we do but answer your request for proposal? And let me ask you a question. When you undermine the process, who will ever respond to a RFP by the City of Avalon for anything? You have told the committee that put this process together, that we all went through for 2 years, that means nothing. So why answer any RFP for the City of Avalon when you get treated this way, when you win? I'm sorry if my voice is too loud, but I'm very passionate and very sincere at what I do. And you go in and you check me out and you find out what I do for the communities that I serve. I've raised $100 million to put a cure to the end of cystic fibrosis. And the $100 million that I personally raised, because I was the founder, has generated a patent for $3 billion to fund research for a lifetime, for the families that don't have money to fight that terrible disease. And those are the things we do for the community. We're well-rounded. We don't just take, we give back. So you check us out. And then what you need to do is go through the entire process of what that committee did with the consultants and everything else. And then you line up how everybody responded to it, and you tell us that we were not the deserving company. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Sure. Oh, after you, Martin, then Mayor Pro Tem Olson gets to speak.
No, let's go for it. Wait long enough.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, you should be like that.
I'd like to just make a couple of corrections. The RFP process was not put out by the city. That's already been established. That statement was made at State Lands. The city has gone on the record. The city had no official involvement. Mr. Franco, you did not put an RFP to the city. You put an RFP.
I didn't say the city.
Okay.
I said there are people from the city involved with it. You didn't hear what I said.
Let's not, please. It's appropriate not to it is appropriate not to interrupt other speakers. Please.
I'll refrain from making any corrections. Ultimately, you guys have an item that's in front of you here this evening. California State Lands Commission is the body that tells everybody else in the state what they're going to do with the trusted lands. Mr. Sampson, I think that your letter is not onerous. I think it supports the community. It doesn't support Curtin Maritime. It doesn't support Catalina Freight Lines. It doesn't support Avalon Freight. It just supports the notion that you guys want a choice if that's available. Mr. Wilhelm has gotten up and said, hey, who's going to make all these decisions? It's great. The Public Utility Commission makes these decisions. That's why they regulate the freight run. They're going to dictate. They're going to tell us, hey guys, you know what? There's not enough room at Pebbly Beach. Or they're going to tell us, hey, every major shipping terminal in the world has multiple carriers freight moving through it on a daily basis. Every day, every second of that day, multiple containers for multiple shippers and multiple end users for multiple shipping lines are going through container terminals. So this isn't, rocket science. This is logistics. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, PUC is going to make that decision. PUC is going to say, hey guys, we're going to look at all the providers, we're going to deem who's viable, and we're going to make our recommendations. That's what that state agency's job is, to regulate the utility. And, in front of you tonight, you've got the option to stay to State Lands. hey, as a community, if we had an option, we would like to explore any option. Not just the option that a private company says that we should have. And at that point, let the regulatory bodies like state lands and like the PUC do what they're set up to do and dictate how that trusted land is accessed and dictate if public purpose is providing freight under a CPUC condition permit. So tonight you guys have an agenda item in front of you which doesn't support any one operator. It doesn't give any one operator an advantage or a disadvantage. It simply states that the city of Avalon is looking out for its citizens and their best interest, and that they're trusting that the CPUC, and ultimately in this case, state lands, is equipped to do that. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Okay. Whoop.
Excuse me, hi, my name's Doug Houghton from Avalon Freight Service and Harley Marine Services. Good afternoon, or good evening, I guess it is now. I just want to share, I can never dream we would be here right now doing this at all alone 10 months prior to our start date. We have so much to do. We've done so much. We've invested so much. You know, I want to share a phone conversation that I had with Mr. Curtin shortly after we were awarded the contract. Mr. Curtin called, or we were in a conversation, it was probably work related. He wanted to congratulate Harley and Greg, you know, for being the successful bidders. And with that conversation, he went on to say that how much this meant to him to get this bid. But then he went on to say, Harley and Greg will service the island fine. I'm happy they got it. So thank you.
Oh, you still haven't spoken yet. Could we let Mayor Pro Tem Olson speak? I keep neglecting him.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it. What we have here is a tale of two councils. We have the full council that has stated their support for Avalon Freight and it's the sole provider through Pebble Beach. And then we have the conflicted council, which is when we lose Richard and Cindy, and we're down to this. These were the people that were against the letters in support. And it's a tale of two councils. Right now we've got a council that says, we don't want this. The full council says they did want this. And so I want us to make sure that if we do send the letter, that we include a copy of the letter of May 8th that says, with this vote, the City Council of Avalon understands that Avalon Freight Services is proposing to serve the sole provider for freight delivery to the City of Avalon through the Pebble Beach facility. And that's what we said on May 8th, and I think that letter needs to go along if we're going to send any letter, because it's sending cross messages to state lands, because they see one letter, they see another letter, they don't recognize it. There's a full council letter, and then there's the conflicted council letter.
Right. But, okay, and I will take a little issue with that, is because the vote was 3-2. And so as far as I'm concerned, this is full council, depending on how it goes. I mean, you can't say, because I asked Ben on that last letter, I said, okay, then send a copy of the agenda that says, you know, the minutes that says how the vote really went. I played team player. That's fine. And I signed the letter, and I signed the letter trying to be a team player. So I think we be a team player now, and I don't think we do attach them, because it's two different agencies we're talking to. We're talking to state lands and we're talking to PUC, two different agencies.
The council in the past has stated their support for Avalon Freight Services as sole provider through Pebble Beach. Through this action this evening, you're overturning a prior action.
No, I'm not. We're talking to two different agencies.
What do you say? What do you say in this letter? What does Mr. Sampson say in this letter? By this letter, Avalon wishes to clearly communicate to state lands that it is not welded to the continuation of a single freight service provider at Pebble Beach.
Well, if this passed today, I would want to work with Joe, because I'm not ecstatic about everything that's in here, kind of, but our job isn't to, like Ben says, write the letter here on the podium. So there are some things that I would take out, but I do feel, again, and I think as Mr. Curtin said, let the process play out. And I don't think I just want the process to play out. They're dealing with bigger issues than our letters. I mean, they're dealing with the Island Company and the RFP process. I mean, there's all these questions going out there, and we don't know what the answer to that's going to be. And I'm not going to play, so I want to keep it open. That's all. I don't know how many more times I have to say that. Yes, Mr. Bombard.
Again, Greg Bombard, President of Avalon Freight Services. My problem is with the letter. The letter makes reference to the letter that the city first supported us with, and that was on October 24th. It makes no mention of the supporting letter that Ole just talked about that was on May 5th, was the vote, went out on May 8th. That letter does say that the city of Avalon understands that AFS is proposing to serve as the sole provider for freight delivery to the city of Avalon through the Pebbly Beach facility.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything else about the mole or any other locations. If the city really feels that there needs to be more than one carrier, they've got opportunities throughout their properties to do something. But this does support one carrier through the Pebbly Beach facility, and that's Avalon Freight Services, and that was voted on, and Annie, as you know, you signed it.
I signed it.
Now, this letter that is going to go out, you have to believe it's going to go to both the PUC as well as state lands. It's not just going to go to state lands. It's going to go everywhere. It sends a mixed message. The letter needs to be corrected, in my eyes. And I would appreciate it if you take a hard look at what's already been sent out so that we don't continue to set the stage for both the PUC and the state lands to not understand where the city stands. And again, the full council voted on a 3-2 vote to support Avalon Freight Services as the sole provider at that location. I'd like to see you follow through with that.
Okay.
The other thing is, so that the city does know, we broke ground yesterday, the building is going up. So we continue to stay on schedule. The water improvements that we have to make in and around the harbor or in our waterborne part of the facility are underway also. So we are on track, we're on schedule, and we will be ready to go. The building is due to be finished sometime in the month of December. Right now, they're saying middle to late December, and plenty of time to make the transition. And again, we are the only carrier that has a long-term lease on a mainland facility. So I appreciate your support, and I'd appreciate you taking a hard look at the letter that's going out.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just have clarification. I guess I'm not understanding why the two council members had to recuse themselves for this letter, but for the previous letter that was addressing the identical subject, they didn't have to recuse themselves.
This is a very complex area of state law that deals with whether it takes a look at each vote and whether the vote directly involves a party or indirectly involves a party. And there are two different standards as to whether someone has a conflict. In addition to that, 2 months ago, the state changed the rules and said that there's no longer the rule of whether you have a direct or indirect. It proposed another standard, which when you go through the factors, still makes a distinction between will an action directly involve or impact a party. In the case of the letter to the freight line, letter to the state lands, the council's being asked to take a position directly on a lease involving the Island Company.
It's seemingly only because a paragraph was planted apparently for that purpose at the beginning, because Scott, the second paragraph says the purpose of this letter is, and then it's almost identical in content to what was delivered 2 weeks before that.
Again,
so
the action,
the process is being manipulated, Scott.
This action is to have the State Lands Commission insert a condition directly into the island company's lease. That is what the action is. It is to condition the lease. And therefore, under the conflict of interest rules, again, each council member decides on each item whether they have a conflict, but they've decided to recuse themselves. On the other item, which dealt not with the island company directly, but dealt with the respective freight companies, there's a different standard that you apply. And because state law has different standards, that's why we have this conflict, or the issue where we have a full council voting on one item and a partial council voting on another. It's the way the state law has been written. And I just can't say anything other than this is what the state does. And again, they also changed the process halfway through. Still same results, but they keep changing the standards.
Okay.
So,
Did I hear the council say that they'd prefer to have the state of California manage the freight business? Is that what I heard somebody say? Because that's just beyond
high-speed rail too.
Understanding. So just the last question would be just whose interests are served by bifurcating this council and having you send a completely conflicting message to the state? I don't know whose interests are served by that. Thank you.
My point. In fact, one more little point, Madam Mayor, if it's okay. As if this letter does pass this evening, could we eliminate any reference to any prior letter that was authorized by the entire council?
Wait, say that again?
We don't reference the prior two letters at all, if we're not going to reference both letters. We don't reference the October 24th letter or the May 8th letter.
Right.
Don't reference either letter.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
John Phelps, 111 Ollie. I was one of the guys walking around. I had to go to the bathroom. But anyway, I wanted to tell Councilman Sampson, this isn't a monopoly. We had a barge service, and they still have it at two harbors. They run all their own freight, run their own fuel. Fuel's about $2 cheaper a gallon down there. So, I mean, this isn't something that's, and I would just like to, being a retired harbor master for 25 years, I don't know why the city would like to open a can of worms with state titles. That happened years ago at two harbors, and it's a mess. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I guess I wonder how, curious how. Do you know what he's talking about?
Yeah, it was 82 lease. That's when the state lands decided to lease the upland property owner because somebody competed with the Island Company Conservancy for the mooring lease, and they were seriously looking at the other operations, and they kind of raised the point, well, you have to provide mooring service, you have to provide boat shops, you have to provide fuel, and if you have no shoreside facility, how are you going to do that? And state land said, you're right, you can't do that. And so now they rent to the upland property owner.
Which is the same thing
basically
as now, except.
And if we were going to take that land, it's not the value of what it is today, it's the highest and best use.
It's what?
Highest and best use. That's what would be appraised at. $1 million home along the beach.
Oh, I hear. Oh, well, I don't. Okay. Yes.
Evening again. Mr. Wellhelm brought up a very good point this evening about the conflicts and the fact that obviously he's viewing these issues as the same. It'll all be out eventually. We presented the City of Avalon with a letter from a firm that specializes in FPPC issues today. We are under the impression that a conflict exists on the PUC votes that went on in the past. The FPPC will be looking into the conflict for the same exact reasons that Mr. Wellhelm stated, because ultimately the issues are tied directly together, just like they are in Vaughn's. If Avalon Freight does not get a PUC license, there will be no lease for Pebbly Beach. There will be no exclusive agreement between the island company and them to have the right to haul their own freight if they ever chose to. And ultimately apparently this group believes that those are fiscal ties, just the same as it is with bonds or with state lands. So ultimately, I'm assuming Mr. Campbell will be responding, and ultimately, if they come to the realization that there is a conflict for those other votes, then those letters will be rescinded and it won't be an issue anymore.
Sean Rawson, with Curtin Maritime. I just had a quick question for the city attorney. So, I guess in the case of the PUC, even though, as Martin mentioned, that there's no lease without a PUC approval, essentially linking AFS and the Island Company, is it in your opinion that there's not a link, hence Cassidy and Hernandez not being conflicted out of a PUC vote? Because that's what we're unclear on.
I've explained the law in letters to you repeatedly.
Okay.
And in emails to you. And the law does not talk about links. It talks about a certain formula.
We've submitted a letter from Nossaman today.
Yes,
an 8-page letter establishing the link and establishing the clear FPPC ruling, and we believe there's a direct conflict.
I understand. I disagree with that letter.
Okay.
How do we find out whether or not this? I mean, is this even something that we even talk about right now?
This is something for each individual council person to individually talk with me, and if there's a complaint, the FPPC decides. The statute that they are citing is a new statute which we've looked at factually as well, and we believe that prior votes were appropriate.
Okay. You can't understand why it's very
I
confusing.
know. Oh, I totally.
I mean,
yes.
especially for people that don't really understand what the laws are.
Again, I understand that, and we've looked at this very hardly and closely, because the regulations are complex, and the regulations do look at each decision individually.
And as you can see, attorneys don't agree. So that's the debate. I mean, you know.
Well, and this might come back to us. So, so where we're at with this letter is...
It would only come back to council members Hernandez and Cassidy, not you. Again, the FPPC only looks at individual council members' actions.
Yeah. Okay. So, would you like to change some things in this letter, Annie, or Oli? That, I mean, you stated what you wanted.
I think if we're going to send the picture out, it's got to be a whole picture. So if we're talking about one letter, we got to include both of them. If we don't put any letters in, fine.
Except this one, correct?
I'm pretty sure the vote's going to be in favor of sending out a letter. 1, 2.
Yeah. And again, and I do believe that there's something about this that I'm hearing both sides of this coin, and I think there's a lot that can be taken out in a way, because we want.
So we want to streamline it.
Yeah, and I think we can. I think one of my main points is to them is let them tell us. You know, I mean, part of it is we don't know. Those guys are the experts, and I appreciate you saying, well, what do they know about freight? What's the state know about freight service? But they work it out how do they work it out when you talk about those huge carriers over town? And maybe automated equipment like you're talking is better. But I mean, when you got those big container ships coming into the port of LA or whatever, they managed to make that.
A lot of those terminals are owned by the shipping lines, so they only handle their stuff. A lot of the terminals you see, they only handle their ships. So it's not like you can bring multiple containers. There are some that handle multiple ships, but a lot of them, Costco's sole ownership.
Those terminals are designed and set up and originally designed to handle difference. Your dock isn't.
Yeah.
Your ramp isn't. Your ramp is 50 years old plus, and it wasn't designed to have multiple users in and out of there. You have tides, you have different things to deal with.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
It's a safety issue.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I agree with what Cindy said earlier, that if Mr. Curtin wants to provide service to Avalon, find a place to land his barge, find a place to distribute stuff. His proposal, he was only using the ramp, and he was going to come to us to get some property at Field of Dreams to have his distribution center. And that's what his proposal said. I thought it was a kind of unique way of looking at it, because you avoid some of the high-priced rents that some people want to charge. Sorry, Paul. But, you know, the model that Avalon Freight has is a single provider model through one facility that makes sense. It's worked in the past, it can work in the future. If someone wants to come in and find another way of doing it, I'm happy to support them. I'm not against competition. I'm just against competition at one particular site that doesn't happen to be owned by the city of Avalon. Unless we buy it.
We need that easement on the landing ramp. I mean, a shared, we need a shared partnership for the landing ramp is very important out there. I mean, in case we do need to bring freight ourselves as a city over to Avalon, we need to be able to get to that ramp. We need to utilize the ramp, and we also need to get to it.
I disagree. We have a proposal, having a good service to come here, providing all of our adequate needs, and now we're going to screw it up by putting multiple providers out there, or us if we want to do it, and we're talking about a ramp leased to a private company adjacent to private property that goes to a road that we don't even own. And so, you know, how do you handle all that? I mean, if it was our ramp, you can talk about that, but when you've got all these bits of private property in between it, I mean, we're starting to ask for stuff that how do we ask? Why do we ask for it? We can ask for it. What pressure do we have to get it? I don't see us extracting anything from the island company, because what have we done good for them recently? What have they done? You know, it's a very complicated issue, and I think we shouldn't go in and screw it up any more than we already have. As they point out, it's 10 months before their lease becomes effective. I mean, we need to have, on April 1st of next year, a dependable freight line coming in here. And they're talking about building new equipment and building facilities on the mainland. Let them do it. We sent a letter in support of it in the past to the PUC. I think we're just muddying the water, and we're trying because we want to make sure that we make our point, that we want competition, stuff like that. It's just competition is good in some cases, and competition is not good in other cases.
You know, I know, but you know, I'm not gonna. There are, I guess, the whole thing again is there are people in the community that want to see how this plays out. There are people that says, and I understand that everybody has the same rates, but you know, you have some guaranteeing rates for 5 years, the other one's guaranteeing rates for 2. And there's just something that just in my bones says,
if we're smart enough to look into the problem, we're going to reach the same conclusion that a sole provider is the only way that it works. We have one cable system in Avalon. Then we have satellite dishes too. You know, we have one electric utility, but we have, you know, solar panels. Excuse me, a little cold. I don't see in my own mind how it can work to have multiple providers out at that one facility. It's too small. You've got there's probably storage for 20 trailers out there. You know, when you start bringing half trucks in, because if you split it up 3 ways, you split it up 2 ways, the amount of freight coming out is going to be the same. We're not going to get a whole bunch more freight. We're just going to distribute it differently. Mm-hmm. And so instead of a barge coming in with 14 trucks, it'll come in with either 14 partially filled trucks or 7 full trucks. And the issue that brought up,
or smaller trucks, or smaller barges.
Or the thing that you brought up was, where do you drop off the freight? You know, if you have sole provider, it's kind of easy. It might be inconvenient to go to San Pedro because you got to cross the bridge, but they're going to have a new bridge. But at least you know you're going to a single point, as opposed to 2 points or 3 points or something like that. And when you sit down and take 2 steps back and you just kind of lay it on the wall, it makes sense to me to have a sole provider through Pebble Beach. And that's what I think our letter is PUC supported. And whatever letter we send out of here, I mean, it's going to send a different message to the state lands. Excuse me.
Okay. Joanna?
Just one more brief point.
talked, or somebody mentioned that there's 7 barges a week that come to the island, approximately 6 days a week plus 1 commission barge. So how are 2 businesses going to operate full-time, surviving on 3 barges a week, or partially loaded trucks? How are they? It's going to be eliminated to 1 company eventually anyway, because two people cannot coexist and make enough money to pay your health insurance and keep their employees employed, and have the barges are not cheap to build, or the facilities not cheap to maintain. And like Oli said, just because we have competition doesn't mean we're going to get a lot of extra freight to the island. So if we're only doing 7 barges a week, well, how are 2 companies possibly going to survive this? And it will eventually be down to 1, just like a lot of the other monopolies in town that currently are monopolies that weren't in the past. They just can't survive it. And so I don't know how much money is in the freight business to be fighting this so vehemently and if that is the case and you do want freight, do it. Just, you didn't win, that's all. You didn't win, sorry.
Jolie Montano, number 20 Canyon Terrace. Just coming up after Joanna. You guys can't base your vote on the financial impact on any company that is coming up with an application in front of you. Their financial is not your concern. If they're going to make money, not make money, that's not your concern. Your concern is what's best for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, whoops. Oh.
Sorry, I tried to stay out of this, but Jerry Dunn, 113 Upper Terrace. Looking back at what the path of this has happened, they provided the information, the island company selected the company. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I think all of these companies would do a fine job. I think the existing company does a fine job. But that ship has sailed. They've been awarded the lease, they've been recommended by the city council, they're investing money. I think that sending letters now to the PUC is just going to muddy the waters. It's going to make it more confusing after you've already sent them a letter saying that you support Avalon Freight Service. So to back up now, after these people have already broken ground, they're already building barges, they're already spending money, they've already got the agreement with the island company now, for someone to back up and say, okay, wait a minute, we changed our mind. That just, I'm sorry, it just looks disappointing from a city council standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Joseph, Councilman.
I'd still like to send a letter. I'd like the State Lands Commission to work this out with the PUC.
They don't talk.
I'd like to make a motion to propose a letter to State Lands Commission regarding competition for freight services. If you'd like to change the letter, I would like to get the letter sent out at least within a week, no more. And I think it should be there should be a public notice as to what the letter says before it goes out.
What? I'm not following that.
You should just put it on the website or something. But in other words, the letter needs to be public. Like you just said, we established what the letter says here in the city council meeting up here on the dais. So there's no confusion as to what it is. I mean, that last letter was sent out. I had no idea what it said when it was sent out. It was just sent out. Yeah, I don't think it was.
I see. I see what you're saying.
I don't know how accurate it was. I'm proposing that this letter be sent out. If you don't like it, we can change it.
Okay. To basically talk about allowing the process to take its course, correct? That's part of it, right? Allowing the State Lands Commission process to run its course.
Absolutely.
And to talk about in favor of competition. Right?
If we're talking about in favor of competition at Pebble Beach, we're changing our stand.
So you're just saying we should just say competition in general and not...
Competition in general is fine, because I think we all agree that competition in general is good. But I think you specifically target Pebble Beach, we're changing our position from our prior action.
Pebbley Beach is the only recognized loading ramp. We have to have Pebbley Beach in there. We need to get to that ramp. We need to be
We
able
can't
to...
get to the ramp, Joe. It's private property. You can't afford to buy it. I can't afford to buy it. The whole people in this room can't afford to buy it. Condemnation
The
is-
Public Utilities Commission will mandate that.
They won't
decision.
mandate that.
Well,
They understand
I still
private-
think we need to have access to that ramp.
Okay. I mean, again, I don't know how the process works. So if they should mandate that, then that's
They
fine.
can't mandate it. It's a taking. If the state says you have to use it and it's not for something other than the purpose that the owner wants to use, the state's taking that property. You get that property appraised at higher and best use, and that's what they buy it for.
Right. Well, I'm hearing what you're saying.
Okay, let's be real up here. I mean, we can't go out there and find the money to buy that piece of property.
I understand that.
We don't own the road. We don't own the property where the freight line is. You know, there's a whole bunch of stumbling blocks in the way that could cost us big bucks.
But I guess we don't know what the fight is. I mean, you know, with what is going on up there, I just... Go ahead. One more time.
Mr. Olson, Councilman Olson, ultimately you just made the statement that the state doesn't do that. They do it at Hamilton Cove. Public access.
They had a chance to get at them. Hamilton wanted to develop. When you give somebody a chance to develop, you get at them.
So every piece of trusted state land, right, to the high tide mark, has public access. All these rich people in Malibu that have their houses right on the beach, does the state come and buy all those beaches to give them beach access easement? No.
It's not the same thing.
It is the same thing. Public purpose. Public purpose is what the California Constitution states, right?
I am aware of that, and it's two harbors people use that for. Our moorings down there, and it says, you know, state constitution 10-4 says we can do this. And the state land says, no, that's not true. You know, they have the right to lease property out to individuals, businesses and such for their exclusive use.
Right.
And that's what, there's a lease.
But ultimately, anyone can come down to Two Harbors and lease a mooring.
No.
Rent a mooring.
No.
They have the right to refuse business,
It's first come, first serve.
but ultimately, they don't have the right to refuse, right? It's public use.
But they don't
So if
have
you
the
get
right
on
to
a
come to the
public
sea,
bus-
they don't have the right to come to the seaplane ramp at Pebbly, because that's leased out. And there is no public access to that ramp. It's not a launch ramp.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question. One thing that has been addressed over and over and over again is the triple vessel calls to the loading block at Pebbly Beach. And one of the things that people are failing to recognize is the intended vessel for Avalon Freight, which is a beautiful 150 by 50 foot Columbia Sentinel designed landing craft, physically cannot land at that ramp. When you have a landing craft, your ramp is low to go onto the beach. And that loading block is designed for barges where the barge is at the deck level. So ultimately, unless it's ultra high tide, the physical constraints of a landing craft landing on a beach versus a barge landing on a loading block creates some interesting geometry. So I would like to get an answer on that maybe at some point.
And here...
Talk about things they don't know about. But anyway, the barge is built, the landing craft is built at the same height as the barges. It has a long ramp. It can land at that block anytime the tide's right. It'll be the same as any other barge coming into there. It's built at the same height. So, afraid Mr. Curtin hasn't looked well enough to understand what this is. So, it's not like a normal landing craft like what the military builds. It's a barge. It's really a self-propelled barge with a ramp on the bow of it, or on the bow of it. So it'll be able to do exactly what it's supposed to do. The only difference is it has the ability to go to any beach up and down the island and bring safety equipment, fire engines, as well as camp goods or anything else that needs to go there, because the ramp is long enough to be able to not high center trucks when you're unloading and loading. So it's built around all these conveniences. That's why it's used so well in Alaska and many other places where there's islands. It's a premier piece of equipment, and it's going to be great for the island. Thank you.
Go ahead, Joseph.
Oh, I got nothing to
Councilman.
say. I got a motion on the table.
Oh, okay.
Joe, I'm sorry, could you rephrase tell me your motion, so
My motion.
I just thought that
Propose
was
a
the
letter,
conversation.
propose to send a letter to State Lands Commission regarding competition for freight services.
And I will second that as long as Joe and I, Councilmember Sampson and I, can figure out the way we want to
Refine the letter.
Refine the letter.
You work with that.
And that's going to take us some work.
We'll work with Ben on that.
That is going to take us some work.
Sure.
We'll work with Scott on it, and we'll make sure the letter is sound. We're not sounding mundane or going back to these other letters that we've already sent. I don't think we need to send anything else attached to it. We just need to send this letter and let the State Lands Commission work out the details.
Okay. Motion is second. Call for the vote.
2 ayes, Mayor Marshall, Councilmember Sampson, 1 no, Councilmember Olson, 2 abstentions, Cassidy and Hernandez.
Oh, sure.
Yes, thank you, Scott.
Yes, we're taking a little break.
No, I'm not. The crowd.
Okay. Okay, and we are back and we are at item number 10.
Hey, Mayor?
Yes.
If I might, I mean, there is no pressing need to review 10 and 11 this evening. If it's the pleasure of the council, I might recommend that we table those to a future meeting unless you absolutely want to discuss them this evening.
Well,
You guys
I
sitting
can
in the-
hold off on 10, but I would like to make a comment about 11, which is the
street
municipal
performer?
code. Instead of us reviewing all of this, which we've got it, and I've read it a couple of times and working with Mr. Alvarez as well, I would like us to direct staff to, because I know there's concerns about hours, locations, and whatever. But I think one of the other issues is we have ordinances regarding sound already on the books and amplification. But I would like us to do a couple little demonstrations with staff, and again, I'm just throwing it out here, with staff and code to work with Mr. Alvarez, go to some different locations that keep also the square footage about this and that, because there's a lot of stuff about square footage and how many feet towards this and that. And using that, but with the amplification as the model, with amplification versus the no amplification, see how that fits in with our dB levels and if it's even feasible. Like we talked about maybe out at the mall, there's a little discussion also by Antonio's. I mean, instead of holding it over, I'd like to give direction for staff to actually do something. And then we can say, this is what the results say. You know, because I know, you know, we've got concerns about it being like right in front of Yoshi's and being there for hours and hours. And so I think with regulating times and more movement and that kind of thing.
Well, we could certainly come up with, you know, we could come back with a proposal. I think that we can do that. Some type of change, proposed change to the ordinance for you to consider. We can do that. I don't know that we necessarily need to do the tests that you're speaking of in order to do that.
Well, I think you do, because if I'm standing someplace and playing my ukulele and now I'm staying someplace and I have this little amp that's sitting on the ground, to see what those dBs are, I think we need to test that to make sure they don't even go against all of our other dB limits, just our noise ordinance for that matter. I mean,
I guess the part of it that if you're kind of trying to conduct a test like that, it's going to depend on how loud you turn the thing up, right?
Well, exactly, and that's what code enforcement does.
I think that I'm a little confused. I don't even know what's being asked. It says discuss and determine whether to provide direction to city staff. Potentially modify the existing ordinance with particular attention to the restriction of amplified music.
Yes.
And this has already been done like several times, and the last time in 2012, and part of this was that there was concerns about amplification, and the seated council at the time felt that, you know, there should be this ordinance in place. I don't understand why we're even doing anything with this.
Because I think people in town like to have fun, as was just witnessed over the weekend.
Mhm.
And if we can have little spots of maybe something a little more exciting, not loud, again, within our dB levels and our current ordinance, I think it's worth to try to look at a few options instead of, like I say, out at the mall, you know.
Right.
We don't.
I guess I'm just not sure why we have musicians playing all the time, and
Acoustic.
It's great.
Just
it's
acoustic,
lovely.
and not all the time. I'd like to, I guess I'm thinking in the spirit of fun, I would like to look at some kind of expansion. So.
There might be competition.
Oh.
If I may speak.
Okay, well then let's decide, do we want to provide direction to staff, or do we just want to say, no, let's keep business as usual? I guess that's the concern.
I'd like to hear a couple of comments from.
And I think that's, yes. Go ahead, Mr. Alvarez.
Okay, well, concerning the decibels, when I was up in Northern California about a little over a year ago, I looked into what was going on in San Francisco, and they had their way of regulating the decibel level was actually very accurate and enforceable. Okay, and what it is they take a reading of a certain performance area, and the normal din, provided there's not a truck going by or something like that, is measured first. And then at 15 feet back, the decibel level would be 15 decibels above the normal din of the ambient noise that's there already. And 15 decibels is not real loud. And I've done a lot of street performing in a lot of different venues since then, since I left the island and I've come back. And I've learned a lot. One thing which I tried just last weekend at the Laverne Farmers Market that they have now, I tried putting my PA down behind me and angled up so I can hear it very well, because a musician needs to hear themselves clearly so they don't blow out their voice, so that they can play. Now, it's been said, oh, you sound fine with just acoustic guitar and no amplification. Well, I'm trying to sing for 4 hours as loud as I can possibly sing physically to be heard. The major difference with the amplification, it wouldn't be that much louder. It would be more of an enhancement of the fullness and the tone, and instead of just banging on my guitar so that it can be heard, I could actually play it, as opposed to just thrashing it and singing at the top of my lungs. But what I did do, getting back, I digress, is having the speaker behind me and angled up, which is the idea I've been saying that I've had. I tried it, and even the people right next to me at the farmers market, the vendors, they said, oh, and you set up right between us. We thought it was going to be real loud. And you know, it was wonderful. In fact, they were coming over tipping me, and they were one of them even put an email on Facebook that how much they loved what I did. And I'm concerned that I don't want to be blasting the store owners out for, you know, while they're trying to run their businesses. And the things I'm just mentioning right now do keep the sound, say within a 15, 20 foot radius. It's loud enough to be enjoyable, but it's not up on a pole like I used to have it, or even if it's down low, it projects further. And that's one of the things that I intend to do if I'm given the opportunity to keep my sound more contained. And I think to have like a 15 decibel limit above the normal din at 15 feet back is reasonable. I could work with that.
Okay. Well, let us just figure out what the council wants, what direction we have today, and we'll go from there.
I think that I know what I was doing out there. I know that the majority of the comments that came back to the Chamber of Commerce when Wayne was running, the majority of the comments were favorable. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be a few people that don't like this and don't like that. You know, that's just the nature. I think, you know, the majority did enjoy it. It's good for the city. I'm not charging the city a red cent to do it.
Right.
Right now, I ended up without a gig this season because the casino dock didn't open, and it would help me immensely. Also, it also helps me present myself out there because for me it's free advertisement. I pick up private parties to make really good money.
Right.
Which is a big perk for me. It makes it worth it for me to go out there and do that, besides the money that I make, that I take in on a daily basis. I never directly ask for tips.
Right.
I do let them know that I am working for tips only, and that's as far as I take it.
Right. Well, and as you would know, that this wouldn't be the Dennis Alvarez amplification thing. It would also then opens it up to anybody else that wants to do that as well, of course. So, so we would be keeping. So anyway.
And going back to the past, too, something that a big question that's always kind of gnawed at me is, besides the fact that I wasn't here when all this took place or given a heads up, that because it directly concerned me, nobody bothered to tell me 3 years ago when this law was enacted. My big question is, why wasn't the law just enforced? I know there's enough people to enforce it. The code enforcement was by all the time. They'd always give me the thumbs up saying that I was at the right volume.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I think if people don't comply, if people are obnoxious or rude,
Right.
like the jugglers, they're pretty distasteful. They would harass people as they went by. Well, then enforce the law, get those people out of there.
Right. Okay.
And I didn't see that done the last time around. It was not done.
Okay, well then, we appreciate your comments, and council, what is your pleasure?
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I will welcome the opportunity to move this to another discussion if need be, because I'd like to request that the council members ourselves go back and watch the actual discussions that the prior city council held, specifically in 2002, also when we were talking about this. So I think that would be good. If we're going to give direction to staff, I think we also need to go back and review some of the comments from the concerned citizens at the time. I have absolutely no doubt at all that Mr. Alvarez would not fall within the decibel level when he's currently being tested, or when he's actually, somebody's there saying, I'm measuring you, but on a general basis, he doesn't. And in cases where he's been asked to turn it down, he's actually gotten very angry and has turned it up. And I speak specifically because I was one of those people that this has happened to. So I think that there's been a lot of discussion around this ordinance years ago. It hasn't been an issue because it just hasn't been an issue the last few years. So I think it's great if you have a venue to go play at and you play your music, and that's part of what you're hired to do. But I just, I don't think that we need to make any changes to this. And if we do, then I think the council needs to review all the prior meetings.
First off, as far as me getting angry, that's not true. Simply not true.
Okay, well.
And whenever I've been asked to turn down, I turn it down. I leave it down, and I've worked very closely with code enforcement, and they will tell you, the police will tell you that we're here at the time. And also, Wayne, I kept the volume down. And when I was asked to turn down, I did turn down. Angry? No. That is not
Again,
true.
all of this has already been discussed. It's already on the record. All the complaints are already there. And for me specifically, I had asked you several times to turn the music down, and
I didn't have
was
a problem
greeted
with
with
turning
contempt.
it down.
So,
I had a problem with, really, if you want to know what did get my dander up, was a condescending attitude that came from you, telling me that I did not understand what I had read when I know that I had.
when you had read what?
When you walked up first, I remember the conversation. Well, you told me that I couldn't solicit for tips, which it's in there that I can. I told you no, that's wrong. And I was not disrespectful, and I did not get angry. And I did turn down, and just, I don't want to mess up a good thing, and I have, and I did. I respectfully turned down whenever I was asked to turn down. I did not get angry at you.
Well, again, I think that the council should just review the prior meetings where this has been discussed once before.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go for that.
Is that where we're at with this? I mean,
Yeah,
so we're gonna.
I'd still like to do the experiment thing, but if nobody's ready to do the experiments to see.
So basically, we need. Oh, Jerry wanted to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jerry Dunn.
Jerry John, 133 Upper Terrace. Dennis does a fine job of playing music. I have no argument with that. The only argument I have is when it was amplified. When it was amplified, became a nuisance. And it wasn't a nuisance because it was bad, it was a nuisance because it was loud. And code enforcement has way too many. It's kind of like our sign ordinance. They don't have time to go enforce the ordinance. They don't want to hear from me. They don't want to hear from the Avalon Grill. They don't want to hear from our hotel guests. They just want to enjoy their time here, and they don't want to have it be blasted by music. And
You're concerned about your hotels, I understand, but I do believe there's other
Numerous
places in
complaints.
town where it would be great, and we could regulate hours. That's the kind of stuff I want to look
If you want to put
at.
it out at the mall, go for it. Just don't put it in front of our hotel. He's wonderful when it's played acoustically, but when it gets amplified, it becomes a war of what's too loud. You know, who's got the decibel meter? And if you do start measuring, because we got into it with the Chi-Chi Club before with decibel and Snug Harbor Inn, and you get out there with the, they're not breaking the decibel meter, but you can hear it clear at the mall, and it still hasn't gotten too loud yet. It just doesn't work. I'm sorry. Maybe it does work at the mall, maybe it does work out at a casino or something, but it doesn't work on Front Street. We've been lucky enough when they do have the events on the stage, that's been kind of orchestrated. It's had certain time frames. It's on certain times of the week, and we've been able to work with that. But to have this, as you just said, replicated, maybe by 2, maybe by 10, all amplified on the same street, it'll be like.
Well, I was thinking with much more regulation, however, but, okay. I appreciate your comments, yes. And for the item we weren't really going to discuss, we're discussing. Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Lubos Peck. I'm here for Island Company on behalf of 2 businesses we manage on Crescent. It's a Pavilion Hotel and Avalon Grill. And I would like to make a statement in regards to proposed changes to this ordinance. We obviously opposed it because of previous experience with amplified music being performed on Front Street, especially towards the businesses where you have open patio seating, open lounge seating. It has nothing to do with the performer, really, if it's Mr. Alvarez or if it's somebody else. As you maybe know, we do support lots of local musicians here in town, but that's our position if it comes to the Front Street, the Crescent Street. If it's in other locations and you want to experiment, for sure support that.
Okay.
Second comment I would have as a private citizen, living in Avalon for 5 years, and my address is Triana Lane, 333. You know, this is my first time speaking to City Council, and I'm a little bit offended by some comments here, especially from Mr. Sampson, about the Island Company, and Island Company is, you know, doing all these suspicious things. I work for Island Company. I'm proud of what I do. He has for sure reasons to say things, but this is not a Hyde Park, right? We are not here to offend each other. I don't know if he's referring to all 700 employees of Island Company being intimidating and people in the town are afraid of them. I would like to request, if possible, to work more constructively together, to put people together rather than to divide them. And if he has, or someone else, some private opinions, keep them private, but this is the forum where we should work together. That's my opinion as a citizen. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Bush.
Okay.
Good night, Tony.
So we know what we're doing with 10, right?
So, no, I'm sorry, I am unclear. Do you want the DVD of the 5 staff reports that I gave you that went to council, or just the most recent one?
I personally would love DVDs for all of them. I'd like to review all of them before going further. But if you guys, I don't remember which of the last meetings was the one where most of the public spoke out, but that's the one where I'd like for everyone to hear the concerns and get to the point of where the ordinance, it was developed because of comments.
And Michael Ponce knows.
Michael Ponce is here.
We
Maybe
got
he
you
can
out of
help
bed.
us with some dates. But Denise, I'm sorry, let me end on that by saying, for me personally, yes, please, could I have all 5 DVDs? Thank you, Dudley.
Okay.
It took me a minute to get down. Michael Ponce.
How many steps?
What? 72.
Great.
I really think this is something that doesn't need to be readdressed This went on for a good 6 months of trying to get this to work. When we started the permitting process of letting street performers on the street, became a major fiasco with the groups that came over and the intimidation to the visitors, that the visitors were not appreciating it and the business owners were not appreciating what was going on. Yes, I would love to have entertainment on Front Street. I would love to be able to enjoy listening to music. Our idea was that they would travel up and down the street and entertain people at different locations, but they camp out. And you really don't need amplified music on Front Street. It's a different thing when it's the concert or whatever, but on a day where people are walking and trying to enjoy, they don't need amplified music. I'm just going to warn you in that we thought we were doing a really good thing, and it blew up in our faces that we had to go and look at other ways of handling it. And what ended up happening is that the guys that were here decided they weren't going to come to the island anymore.
Right.
It just, to be honest with you, you're going to open a can of worms that you'll never be able to put back in.
Don't you notice that we like eating worms?
I know.
Oh, thank you for your comment, Michael. Okay.
Mr. Commissioner.
Oh, yes. Yes, okay. So, you know what we're doing. You're giving us DVDs, and we're gonna, and
All of them.
all of them. Okay.
Are you going to give us a CD of all the different meetings combined on one CD, or do we have to look at
You'd
all?
have to look at all of them, Joe. I will try to mark it so you'll know what number to go to in the DVD. I'll do my best.
And the point of this is to...
Not reinvent history.
Not to reinvent this wheel and do this over again.
To
when
see what in
we've
the
already
ordinance
done
that we can possibly change that might make this process a little easier, or might make a street performer fit into Avalon without...
To see what
no.
the concerns were
No,
last time.
we did, that process has already been done.
Yeah.
I am hoping that we go back and watch those videos and show that the process has already been done, and the conclusion was this ordinance. And I'm
Okay.
just saying that I don't feel, I'll point out a takeaway that I just took from Mr. Peck's comments, and that is, I will apologize to Mr. Alvarez. My intention is and was not to attack you, and I will admit I have not eaten since 9 o'clock this morning, and I'm starving and I'm exhausted. So I apologize if I personally attacked you. That was not my intention. But what I don't want to do is spend city time, council's time reinventing a wheel without going back and figuring out why it was put together the way that it was first.
Yeah, but part of my thing is, though,
So
if they're
soon.
looking at amplification at places where they typically didn't, where it might work, that's what I would like to look at, so that it does offer some fun in this town.
Make a designated area.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun in this town, and we can designate how many hours a day, and we can designate a bunch of other stuff that would be different than what we currently have on the books.
We might change something in it if we,
Yeah, or add
if we see
to.
it
Yeah, add to.
necessary.
So
Yeah.
Mayor Marshall, then sounds like there's two things in the current ordinance that you'd want to change, and that would be locations that
Yeah.
sound like they're outside of Crescent Avenue,
Right?
and amplification in those outside areas.
Yeah, and possibly checking some of the ones that are in the thing, but maybe the number of hours that they're there. No, they can't camp maybe for 6 hours.
In consecutive days, I mean, we can go on. and
Yeah, I
on
mean,
and
I
on.
think there's just a lot of trick stuff we could do, because I know there are people that love the kind of music that Dennis does, and I'm getting calls about those as well. How do you make it work? So I think if we just need to compromise. But anyway, so, okay. And, okay, that is it. We held off on the one, right? We're gonna take the story polls next time?
Yes.
Okay.
Why wasn't that on the consent calendar? Just out of curiosity, because it's building?
Oh, because it's an ordinance.
It's an ordinance, okay.
Okay, and we will not be going into closed session. We're going to carry that over. And no
Good
further
night, Tony.
comments.
9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Oh, yes. See everybody tomorrow. Meeting adjourned.